Drive.
Good afternoon, it's Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and special guest Martin Allen, former West Ham midfielder, with you until 7, looking ahead, of course, to Manchester United versus Arsenal at Old Trafford, 8 o'clock tonight. This is a huge game and historically, well really in terms of English football, it's been the biggest game of all. 9 Premier League titles in a row these two shared in the 90s and early noughties. Tonight's game important for both of them. Not quite as important as it has been in previous years, Martin, but what is your favourite Arsenal versus United moment? What is the definitive moment for you?
The definitive moment, Johnny, was in the tunnel at Old Trafford, where United, or was it at Old Trafford or was it at Highbury, when Keane and Vieira faced up to each other and Keane pointed his finger at Vieira. That moment, that hatred and that passion and fierce competitive nature before they were going out into the arena. Oh, it was amazing. I loved it.
Do you think either current squad has anyone like a Keane or a Vieira? Two proper battlers, two warriors, two men, dare I say it, in central midfield. Is there anyone who you could see getting at each other before the game has even kicked off?
No, it's changed, Johnny. It's changed. You know, things that used to happen in the old days in the tunnel before the cameras actually got in the tunnel. You know, they'd be spitting, treading on people's feet, threatening people, giving them nudges in the back. All the big boys being out the front. We've all done that stuff before to try and intimidate and mentally weaken and dilute the opposition.
It's interesting you should say that, because every day before we walk in for the show, Martin just looks me in the eye and growls. just to get us both in the mood.
I wish. Those are the days, Johnny. No, you're much bigger than me, but I wouldn't do that to you. But these games, when we're looking through and we're seeing some of the players that have, you know, we're talking about the Van Nistelrooy and Keown confrontation. We're talking about David Beckham, Bergkamp, Giggs, Gary Neville, Overmars and the battles that they used to have. Vieira, I mean, Rooney, Fabregas, apparently he threw that pizza, didn't he, Sir Alex Ferguson, from along the tunnel and splashed into him. Apparently it all kicked off after that Pizzagate in the tunnel.
Imagine that from a teenage Spaniard, by the way, throwing a pizza, supposedly, at Sir Alex Ferguson.
Well, perhaps he was trying to spin it and it just came off of his, you know, where they flip it round in Pizza Express or whatever they call it. But no, these games, Johnny, these were taking place in 1999, 2002, 2003. So they were big games, but the game has changed so significantly over the years. And when you watch Premier League games now, it's very rare you see a nasty tackle. It's very rare it's more about interceptions, covering spaces. 10, 11 players back behind the ball, defending, keeping the opposition. Don't leave any space behind you. Don't let people pass through those little gaps and in between the lines. And football has changed. But tonight, I think tonight is going to be a fantastic game of football.
Well, we're going to be zooming in on some of those great moments, some of those great rivalries throughout the show. But I want to ask both you and Guy, Martin, what your take on that Keane versus Vieira rivalry was, because mine as an Arsenal fan was always very extreme, where if I watch that tunnel incident still, I get quite angry, because for me, Roy Keane gave it the big one always in the tunnel, always. But if it ever got a bit tasty, I would back Vieira every day of the week, and for me, he was the better footballer by miles, not close.
Would you agree with that, Martin?
No.
No. You're not an Arsenal fan, are you, Jonathan?
Do you not think Vieira was the better footballer?
Not by miles.
I thought
there might be a conversation to be had.
I'm going, just rewind that a little bit. Not about if you had Keane or Vieira versus Vieira 1-to-1, you'd have Vieira every time. If you're talking about a battle royale, you could never.
If you're saying bar
ever
fight, I'm having Vieira.
No, John, you must be mad. I'm the mad one, not you, Johnny. You against Roy Keane. He's an absolute tank of a warrior, man.
If I had to fight one of the two, which is not where I thought I'd be 5 minutes into this afternoon show, I would probably sooner fight Roy Keane.
What was out of order, by the way, about what Roy Keane did? Because Vieira was, in Roy Keane's words, picking on Gary Neville.
Well, I don't. It's not so much that I think
What sort
it
of
was.
captain is he if he lets that
No,
go?
I agree, and he should do it. And when I object, it's not because I'm saying he's out of order. What I'm saying is he was incapable of following through. If you watch Roy Keane in those games, he would smash everybody. I don't remember him properly clattering Vieira all that often and getting away with it.
Johnny, after this show, I'm going to tell Roy Keane that you think Patrick Vieira
Do you know him?
is tougher than him. Yeah, of course I do.
You're mates with
I'm
Roy,
going
aren't
to tell
you?
him. I ain't mates with
No,
him,
put me in
but I
touch.
know him, and I'm going to tell him that you think Patrick Vieira is tougher than Roy Keane. He'll find your address and he'll be knocking on
seriously,
your door
seriously,
and
put
say,
me in
"Hi,
touch with
Johnny.
Roy."
What you got to say, boy?"
No, I'll have a chat with Roy. Let's have him on the show. We'll have a chat. He can explain his reasoning, and if he wants some kind of charity boxing match, I'm willing to discuss that with him.
Oh my God! Now there's something I would pay to see.
I think to be a little bit more serious, I think they've both got that nasty tackle. Both of them are strong leaders. Both of them are strong-minded, and both of them had that magic that you needed in those days in the middle of midfield, especially for some of those battles that you're talking about, Guy. But for me now, it's changed a bit. You haven't got those characters now that are going to, pinpoint people in the dresser in the tunnel. Get out on the pitch and give them the eyes and point your finger at people, threatening them and having it out with them verbally and physically a little bit. It doesn't really happen anymore. But tonight, I still see tonight, even though football's changed, I still think tonight is going to be a great game to watch.
Oh, I think it'll be a good game to watch. I don't think there's much doubt about that, but isn't the issue, and I think it's come at a brilliant time because we spent half of last week essentially trying to diagnose what is wrong at Manchester United. We spent the other half trying to diagnose what's wrong at Spurs. But the difference is, in the time since we last had a show, Spurs have had a game and they managed to win with 10 men, and we'll come to that a bit later, an impressive effort. United haven't, so we can still sort of speculate a little bit what is going to happen, what isn't going to happen, who's going to play, who's going to make a sort of decisive mark and impact on the game. And the point is that this game's come at the perfect time because both clubs have fallen so far, and it was the Man United Arsenal games that you would literally set your watch by to say, well, if you don't watch any other games this season, watch those two, because they're pretty much the only ones you need to watch to know who's going to win the league. And I can still remember now being a kid and not really understanding much about the history of football, not really understanding an awful lot about the mind games that were going on between Fergie and Wenger. And by the way, they and themselves were pretty enthralling, and their battles on the touchline. But knowing that when those games came around, it meant absolutely everything. And we're looking at a few of these games now from the past. Overmars scoring the winner and sealing the title for Arsenal in 1998. The cup final replay, Ryan Giggs and that Axminster rug on his chest. Man United Arsenal with Wiltor scoring the goal that would eventually help to lead Arsenal to the double. Man United, the Battle of Old Trafford with Pizzagate, Van Nistelrooy's missed penalty and Keown's shocking behaviour. And then a year later, 2-0 United, 49 games, unbeaten run ended. What a game that was. What a night.
Looking at tonight's game, what the build-up to it reminds me of completely is a few years ago and Marcus Rashford's Premier League debut, where there was a parallel there with injury problems for United, and Arsenal were going, they're there for the taking. They are there for the taking. And what we saw was a young English centre-forward have to start because of the situation the squad was in. He scored 2, destroyed Arsenal. We could be in the same boat tonight. Mason Greenwood could be in line for a start. And it would be very, very Arsenal to turn up at Old Trafford thinking we're important, thinking United have got injury problems, and get turned over by a teenager. It would not surprise me.
You think that Man United can beat Arsenal?
I do. And I think particularly if the entire media and the Arsenal fans, the fact that you are amazed that I'm saying United can do it makes it so much more likely than they will, because this Arsenal squad in particular are, for me, mentally weak and they're complacent. And if they go into this game thinking United are in trouble, we'll have them. When was the last time Arsenal won at Old Trafford? We don't do it.
2006, Johnny, since you asked. Let's hear just quickly from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer speaking about Mason Greenwood, who is in line to start tonight with injuries, of course, to both Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford.
When you get him in the box, he's dangerous. What's pleased me about him as well in the period that we're in, that he doesn't turn down chances to finish. And when you're not 18 yet and you keep trusting yourself, he gets the chances. So I'm not worried about him at all.
Martin, what does it say about Manchester United that they are relying on 17-year-old Mason Greenwood?
Well, it's just outrageous, isn't it, Johnny? Absolutely outrageous. All those games that we're talking about, the squads we're looking at for Manchester United over the years, they always had 4 strikers. Always the best 4 strikers. 2 good ones playing and warming the bench another good 2. And if it wasn't working with those 2 out there after 60, 65 minutes, Sir Alex would get the next 2 ready to go on, and invariably they'd come on when the game opens up a little bit and win the game for Manchester United. How they sold Lukaku, and we've been over this numerous times, and poor old guy who loves Man United selling your centre forward without a replacement is pretty laughable. And Rashford, the debate will go on whether he's a number 9 to play through the middle as a key player, or whether he's one of the 3 on the right or the left, like he does for England, and does brilliantly well for England playing in that role. But for the manager to have to put a 17-year-old on, I think that says an awful lot about the recruitment and the bringing in of players and getting rid of players at Manchester United, and it's got to call all that into question. And if Ollie's got to play a 17-year-old, he is going to be looking out there and thinking, well, I told you so.
Well, the back pages today are saying that Solskjaer could be looking for another centre-forward as early as January, but he's still insisting that he's got no regrets about getting rid of Sanchez and Lukaku in the summer.
It was time for Rom to go. He knows that. He didn't want to be here. What's the point having players here that don't want to be here? And it's no point getting players in that you're not 100% sure about.
Well, he's got some good points there, and 100% agree with him. Why have players here that don't want to be here? I'm sure Pogba came out publicly and said he didn't want to play for Man United and he wanted to move. And I'm sure the goalkeeper made it quite clear, Van der Geer, that he also wanted to go and play in Spain. So why have they re-signed for Manchester United? They shouldn't be in that position.
Well, what money are they on?
Doesn't matter about money.
Answer.
Manchester United have got absolute fortunes of money. They can pay as much as any of the big clubs in the world. And then you've got Lukaku. He made it clear there. Lukaku wanted to leave, so why keep a player that wants to leave? Surely you get another centre forward or two centre forwards lined up to come in and take his place, because they do need a second lead centre forward to replace him.
That's absolutely spot on. And there were, of course, rumours that they were in for Mandzukic and that they could go back for him in January. But the fact that they didn't get one, we'll never know. But who do you reckon is to blame? Was Solskjaer not pushing hard enough? Was he a bit arrogant in backing the likes of Greenwood? Or do you reckon he asked and a certain Mr. Woodward didn't make it happen?
Well, I'm going to rewind you, Johnny. And you said there that they might go back for Mandzukic in January. I stand to be corrected from you guys, but Mandzukic, I think, is 33.
He is, yeah.
When Manchester United, and we're talking about where did it all go wrong when guys started off this debate this afternoon, where did it all go wrong? Well, Manchester United never bought centre-forwards that were past their best at 33 years old. They got them in their prime at 24, 25, 26. Wayne Rooney, I think they took him at 19. They got and paid for the best players and got them into their squad. And it wasn't just the homegrown players that were so good that we know about with Beckham and Neville and Nicky Butt and all the others. They've always bought the best, and now I don't think they do. They've just done it with Wan-Bissaka. They've done it with the centre-back,
Harry Maguire.
The left winger, they took him from Swansea, who was probably not a gamble because I've seen him play and he's a really good player, James. But they needed more of those types of players. They needed time to gel. And when it came to buy him in the summer, we've debated this on Love Sport so many times. Why didn't they just buy him before they went on their pre-season trip? It's crazy.
It absolutely is. Well, lots more on this throughout the show. Coming up next, Champions League watch. Can Leicester make the top 4?
This is Love Sport. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Hello, I'm Tim from Bolsover. I'm a retired teacher. I was looking for a better electricity deal from my parents when I got an email from a spokesman said it was a fixed deal for 2 years, which was better for my parents, less for them to worry about. And when I had a look at the sums, I had to recheck because I couldn't quite believe it. They were going to save over £900 each year they were on that deal. Needless to say, we signed up pretty quickly.
With a spokesmansaid.com, fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
Mr Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr Davies.
In one go?
Yes, Mr Davies.
Today?
Yes, Mr Davies.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr Davies.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
I love it when it's windy. That way you can tell it's my real hair.
This is Love Sport.
Goosebumps. What an absolutely regal piece of music. The reason why, of course, we're playing that is because it's time for Champions League watch. We know Liverpool will get in there. We know City will get in there. But actually, those third and fourth spots are both very much up for grabs. One team who Martin Allen is particularly keen on, Brendan Rodgers' Leicester, who strengthened their credentials at the weekend with a thumping 5-0 win over Newcastle. Martin, was this a case of Leicester being brilliant or Newcastle being really quite shoddy?
Well, disappointing performance. He'll be very, he was upset in his interviews. Steve Bruce, you could really tell it had knocked him. There just seems to be too much negativity around the club. Off the field, on the field, the potential sale again. Once again, that's reared its ugly head, and the performance and with the tackle that player put in on Saturday was an absolute disgrace. Those tackles have gone out many years ago. You can't do that sort of tackle, and it has basically not cost them the game, but it's certainly had a significant part to play in the defeat. And that player needs a good clip round the year, if you know what I'm saying, to straighten him out, because that was appalling. And I'm not sure they can score enough goals, Newcastle, to stay up, to be fair. The signing of Joel Linton with 7 goals in 30-odd games, with 40 million, it seems a big gamble that he's going to actually get to 12, 14 or 16 like Rondon, who they had last year.
Well, the problem wasn't goal scoring, it was conceding them at the weekend. Let's hear from club captain Jamal Lascelles, who wasn't happy.
Terrible from the boys. It's no one's fault to blame but ourselves. Okay, we went a man down, but we've still got 10 men on the pitch, and after that, leaking in 4 goals is not good enough, and it's just not acceptable. So. The gaffer, but we really do need to look ourselves in the mirror, because I don't think I've been here before where we've conceded 5 goals. So it don't matter about tactics, it don't matter about how we pass the ball. You got to flip in, at least make it hard for them, even with a man less. You can do it. Teams have been doing it all, through the season. So it's not good enough from us.
Seriously stern words from Jamal Lascelles, but Martin, he's right, isn't he? It wasn't good enough.
Yeah, he is right. Yeah, although the third goal I thought was a bit unlucky with the deflection. No, it's right. You don't often get players come out and be as frank and to the point. And then I saw Steve's interview as well afterwards and listened to that carefully. He looked like, well, what can you say? The central midfield player, Longstaff, supposed to be 50 million. Bid went in for him in the summer, apparently, to Manchester United. he don't look quite 50 million to me, I've got to say. Looks a decent player, but he's nowhere near that 50 million mark. No, he has got a real tough job. And if there was a little band, I'd say, that could get relegated, Newcastle would be right in amongst it.
Do you think Steve Bruce is doing a decent job with what he's got?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, crikey. Everyone says blame the manager, sack the manager. It's all down to the manager. But everybody seems to forget, bring the next manager in. He's still got the same players that are there in front of him. So, no, I think he's got an awful lot of hard work to do there. Getting a team spirit. And what you've also got, unfortunately, at Newcastle, if you've got 50,000 supporters, they've all got the ump. They've all got the ump. They can't stand the owner. They turn up with the ump. And they're always negative towards the football club. If they are going to succeed, sooner or later, Rafa Benitez is gone. You know, they can't keep living on that one. You've got to put it behind you, and someone's got to galvanise the old city and say, well, look, this is the situation we're in. This is what we have got. So whether it's Steve Bruce or who else is going to come in place of Steve Bruce, that would be ridiculous.
I saw a very funny but quite cruel tweet earlier likening Steve Bruce to our fair Prime Minister Boris Johnson, saying, look, here are two guys who've spent their entire lives waiting for their dream job, have got it, and now are finding it's rather tougher than they thought. But former Newcastle manager Graham Souness had his say on the performance on Sky Sports after the game.
One of the first things I would say to a group of players when I took a job, I'll only find out about you, and you'll only find out about me when we lose 2 or 3 games back to back. And then we'll see what we're all made of. And right now, that's where Newcastle find themselves. They've got to grow some. They've got to stand up, look at themselves in the mirror, and say, that can't happen again.
And former Newcastle striker Joe Allen joined Love Sport Breakfast this morning and had this to say on Bruce and the team.
I just don't think they're sacking Patrick, to tell you the truth, because, I mean, he's signed a contract, and Mike Ashley doesn't like giving money away. Yeah. I mean, we lost Rafa Benitez, who, let's face it, it was probably a similar group of players. If not, we were stronger last year because of Rondon and Perez. The fact was that we didn't buy Rondon. Perez went to Leicester and Rafa went to China. Yeah. I mean, it's a case of we're supposed to be stronger now that we've got a £40 million signing, who I don't think he had a shot at goal yesterday. And that's a worrying thing. If you're getting beat, there's a way to say it, and I hate it because it's one of the phrases that I've hated all my life in football. But if you're going to get beat in the right way. What's the right way to get beat? That's rubbish. Go get your neck on the line, put your head in the way, do something. God, man, show a bit of passion, show a bit of fight.
Martin, as a former player who played with fight, as a manager as well, is there ever a right way to get beaten?
Well, I'm not sure it's actually the right phrase to put on it, right way to get beaten. But if a paying fan watches his team and he sees his players giving everything, getting up and down, getting tackles in, competing, playing good football, getting crosses in, goalkeeper makes some good saves, or you hit the post, hit the crossbar, and you're a little bit unlucky, I think supporters that pay would clap and cheer those players off and appreciate their efforts. But the ones that don't quite put a stint in, you know, we're talking earlier about the Arsenal, Manchester United battles at Old Trafford and at Highbury in those days, how fierce and competitive it was. You knew that every player on that pitch would put their foot in and have a go, even if they were highly technical players. The ones at Newcastle at the moment, I would say there'd be question marks over several of those players. And for those Newcastle fans, as Joe Allen was just telling us, number one, they've lost Rafa Benitez, who's a top manager. Number two, they've lost their 2 centre-forwards in Rondon and Perez. And when you lose your best 2 players, and the best 2 players are the ones that win you the games and the points, then you're in trouble. They are going to find it very, very difficult to score enough goals for them to win games, and that won't matter if it's Steve Bruce or Rafa Benitez. You lose your best players, you don't win.
Well, from a Leicester point of view, rather different story, much more positive. They're flying. The points are on the board. 3rd in the table, 14 points. they're looking incredible under Brendan Rodgers, not just the results, but the performances. And without meaning to get ahead of ourselves, particularly if you're a Foxes fan, they actually have more points this year than they did at this point in the season back in 2015-16 when they went on to win the league under Claudio Ranieri. With that in mind, Martin, how far can this group go?
Oh, I think they'll be Champions League, Johnny. I think they'll get in that top four. Alongside, I'm not sure who alongside. That don't really matter at the moment. But no, I think they can go all the way. I think they're strong defensively. They all work so hard as a team. The addition of Tielemans, who came from Monaco, I think, for 30 million, and then Perez, he scores goals. Tielemans score goals. Maddison will score goals. Vardy, from what I've been told, is on his best run of goals for God knows how long. He looked fit, and coming away from the England squad has done him well. And I like the player in central midfield. His name's Ndidi. I think he looks absolutely Conte-like. Conte-like?
Yes, indeedy.
We hadn't practiced that one beforehand. No, and the right back, is his name Pereira? He scored on Saturday.
Scored the week before as well.
And the left back, Chilwell, for me, is the best left back in our country at the moment. And the geezer that's taken Maguire's place, what's his name?
Soyuncu.
Pardon?
Soyuncu. He's Turkish.
Soyuncu. He looks a quality player. And the goalkeeper, we all know about the goalkeeper. He knows what he's doing, Schmeichel. So I think they've got a really, really strong unit. And I think they've got enough athleticism in their team to be able to take on and compete with Liverpool and Man City. I'm not sure they'll always beat them over the season, but they are the closest model to what Liverpool and Man City do, and they're pushing right up behind them.
Your only worry there is the question of depth, but interesting that you mentioned the goal-scoring form of Jamie Vardy. He's scored more than anyone else in the league since Brendan Rodgers took over, and he says there's a similar feeling around the club now to what there was 4 years ago.
If I'm being honest, it's all the same, especially off the field and at training. Really close-knit group, and we'll just keep it going as it's going. Get back on that training field this week, and obviously look forward to the game against Liverpool next weekend.
And their manager, Brendan Rodgers, has been winning 3 competitions per season.
Yeah, with Celtic.
For the last 2 years. Yes, with Celtic, well done. But to win things and have that mentality of winning things and knowing how to win tournaments and long competitions, not many people do it. Not many people can do it. He knows it. He's seen it. And I think he's a top manager. One day, I think he'll leave Leicester, or he will leave Leicester, and go and manage up at the top, one of the top clubs.
I think you may well be spot on. Well, coming up, we're going to be talking about the heroics of Dina Asher-Smith, and we're going to be hearing from Love Sport Drive's very own Ewan Thomas, who's out in Doha for the World Championships.
Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it. You just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
This is Love Sport.
Dina Asher-Smith made history last night by winning her silver medal in the 100-metre final at the World Athletic Championships out in Doha. But the stadium was nearly empty by the time the Blue Ribbon event took place. 2,000 people there in a 40,000 capacity stadium. Earlier on, I spoke to Love Sport's very own Ewan Thomas, who's out there, to get his thoughts on the controversial choice of venue. But I started by asking him how Dina Asher-Smith would be feeling after her brilliant achievement last night.
Well, to be honest with you, Johnny, the way she's been the last couple of years, she is a world beater. She's so ambitious. She wants to be number one. But I think when she reflects this morning, she thinks, you know what, I've smashed the British record. I've got my first global medal. I think it's the first medal in 36 years for a female athlete in the sprint events. She should be delighted. She was beaten by such a world-class athlete. I really think in sport, you can only control what you do. You can't control your opponents. And if you step off the track and you've run a personal best and you've still been beaten, you can't do any better than that. And I think the nation must be very proud of her because, you know, tough conditions out here. She's got through the rounds and she was superb. And, of course, she runs in the 200 metres this evening, getting through the qualification rounds. And I'm tipping her for gold. I think she will win the 200.
That's the big one for her, isn't it? I know she's had a fairly extraordinary route to the top. Tell us a bit about that. Where's she come from?
Well, I remember hearing about her in London 2012 because she was one of the kit carriers. She was one of the young athletes who was put forward as a potential good athlete, but someone who could soak up the atmosphere of an Olympics. So she was the one who was standing behind the blocks when the athletes take their clothes off, get into their athletics kit, their shorts and vests, and takes the basket to meet the athletes at the finish line and say, there you are, Mr. Bolt, here's your clothes, here's your tracksuit, well done. And she was obviously just caught in a massive emotion of, wow, this is the Olympics. And then within 4 years, she's the British record holder. 4 years after London 2012, she was our best sprinter. And over the last few seasons, she's gone from being very good to world class. And we saw that last night. What a performance.
Yeah, she is incredible. A big part of what inspired her at London 2012, beyond just the brilliance of the athletes, will have been the event, the occasion, the atmosphere. Are there going to have been local people inspired in Doha? Because we've seen a lot of photos in the press and on social media that seem to show a fairly empty stadium.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate. I think by the time they did the lap of honour, a lot of people had gone. And I think one of the problems out here is a lot of the spectators who come here, they have certain curfews where they have to be back in their homes by. So clearly the crowds haven't been as busy as we would have liked out here. But I've got to say, for some of the events, the noise inside the stadium has been good. So, okay, there is a lack of spectators, but the ones who are there are really making a noise. And I think for Dina, at the end of the day, it's all about getting that global medal. Yes, of course, you'd rather run in front of a 60,000 sellout crowd, but it doesn't matter. You've still got to beat who's there, and I think when she looks back, she'll think this has been an amazing championships for her. And as I said, it's not over yet. I spoke to a coach afterwards, Coach John and a mum Julie, and they both were delighted, but they said, listen, it's only half done. 50% of her work is done. They were really, I don't know, very professional in their approach. It was almost like they were celebrating she had that medal. But Coach John was really very much, it's not over yet. You wait to the 200 metres. So I'm expecting something special.
And beyond just the 200 metres, she's got her eye on Tokyo in 2020 as well. Are we going to be looking at a potential Olympic medalist here as well?
100%. I'd say probably champion. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, the Jamaican who won the race last night. She's not as young as Dina, very experienced athlete. But I've just got a feeling if Dina can keep injury-free and have another good winter behind her, she's only naturally going to get stronger and faster. So we definitely haven't seen the best of Dina Asher-Smith yet.
Just finally, mate, I've got to ask you, I've been enjoying your Instagram stories where you have been roasting your inner ginger struggling along. What is the temperature like there? What's it like inside and outside as well for those marathon runners?
Well, Johnny, the weirdest thing is everywhere you go is state-of-the-art air conditioned. So your room's 16 degrees and you go outside and it's like 120. And all of a sudden, it's just a change of heat. It's okay for the athletes because inside the stadium they keep the temperature to 25 degrees. But as you said, for the marathon run and the 50k walkers, that's why those races are taking place so late. They start at midnight. It's obviously very hot, very humid. It's not ideal. Some African nations will like these conditions, but some Europeans, especially pasty ones like me, will be struggling in the heat. But you've got to say it's the same for everyone, and all the athletes would have been here for a number of weeks to acclimatise and to get used to it. But yeah, it's hot. Look, at the end of the day, we're in a desert. It's going to be hot.
Ewan, great to catch up with you. Thanks for your time. Hopefully we'll catch you.
I miss you, Johnny, by the way. I miss you all there, so I can't wait to get back.
We miss you too, darling. We'll see you very shortly, and hopefully we'll chat tomorrow after the 200 metres. Thanks again. Ewan Thomas there, former Olympic World Championship great, giving his take on Dina Asher-Smith. Yeah, lovely little bit of marital bliss there with Ewan Thomas. Great to see Dina as well. An extraordinary run last night. A bit of disappointment for her that she didn't get the gold, but the silver was an incredible achievement, a personal best time for her. We can have no complaints. And I echo his thoughts, I have to say. I think she's going to go and get gold tonight. But we have to talk, Martin, about Doha as a choice of destination. Beyond the temperature, which we're going to come on to, simply the attendance, 2,000 people roughly in a 40,000-seater for the World Championships. These aren't the heats. These aren't school sports days. This is the best athletes in the world going head-to-head in the biggest contest in the world, and nobody's there. Host it somewhere. They're going to watch it.
It's outrageous. How difficult is it for the... Is that right, Johnny? Tell me. Did they do a race starting at 12 o'clock at night?
So the women's marathon started at midnight because the idea was it is so hot, not just at the very highest point in the day, but throughout, that if you try and run, there is no point even attempting it. So they started that at midnight to make it better, but it was still 32 degrees with something like 70% humidity. 28 of the 68 marathon starters pulled out over the course of the race.
Well, that can't be right, can it?
No.
It can't be that it's the same for everybody, and they've had 2 weeks out here to acclimatise. That cannot be right, to get maximum best performance and to compete in a 40,000 stadium. 40,000 with 2,000, I mean... Whose idea is it to do that? Surely someone's got to be responsible.
Well, someone is responsible, and lots of people are criticising the IAAF about that decision. I think there is a case, and bear in mind, we're going to have a football World Cup here where the issue isn't just the temperature, it isn't just attendances, it also, in less significant terms, is that you can't drink in public.
Well, it's not one thing over any of the others, isn't it? The whole experience for fans who pay, remember, an arm and a leg to go out and watch any of these major tournaments, whether it's a Rugby World Cup in Japan, an Olympics in Australia, or the Football World Cup in Qatar. It costs you so much to go there, and people do it because they love it. But you're going to a country where it's very difficult to drink alcohol, as you say, Johnny, which is, you know, like it or not, a big part of the sport and football watching experience. You are in 40-degree heat and 80% humidity a lot of the time when you're outside. Yes, you have air-conditioned stadiums, but if the athletics attendances are anything to go off, it'll only be filled by, you know, football fans from abroad.
Can I ask you, in the stadium, you said air-conditioned, does that mean the roof's going to be on?
No, there's no roof. It's actually impressive technology, although, again, it must be costing them an absolute fortune to do. I know it's money they've got, but could it be money they're spending better elsewhere? You would say yes, given that some of the people there working on these stadiums and preparing for the World Cup are on, shall we say, a pittance as an absolute maximum. So they could be doing that, but it's a clever system where it literally does it for the stadium and nowhere else. You can apparently be like a metre above the top of the stadium, and it's normal outdoor temperature. So I don't quite know how they do it,
so
but it's quite impressive.
If you're playing and watching, is it cool?
Yes.
Or is it 120 degrees?
No, if you're in the stadium, you are cool. But here's another of the problems for the athletes. The warm-up area, you know, they have the little warm-up tracks outside. You see them on the TV and they're warming up and they're listening to their music. That isn't cooled. So, you know, you have to warm up in the ridiculous heat, and it can't be good for your body to go from 30, 40 degrees to 20 degrees in air condition for the actual race. And as Johnny, I think, mentioned a moment ago, 28 out of a field of 68 runners in the women's marathon. didn't finish the race. I'm sorry, that is crazy. These athletes, they're being put at risk because of the conditions they're being forced to compete in.
They are, absolutely. And there are problems on top of problems here, because even when we're talking about the lovely, cool, air-conditioned stadium, before he went, Ewan was saying he'd been told to bring a coat, because for his presenting work in the stadium, he was going to be frosty cool. Now, that is all well and good, but there are huge environmental ramifications there, where you're having to air condition a stadium that almost anywhere else in the world you wouldn't have to. Why? Why bother? It's a nonsense.
Johnny, it is a
Money.
nonsense. But the point
Money,
is...
eh? Someone must have been paid off well, Guy, don't you think?
Money makes the world go round, Martin. Let's be honest, that is the sad reality of it. And I just feel sorry. You said it yourself, Martin, but I feel sorry for the competitors. You know, nothing will wipe the smile off Dina Asher-Smith's face. What a sight that is, by the way, and what a sight we've got to look forward to. I hope Dina Asher-Smith winning
that 200,
many
Guy?
more medals. The 200 final isn't for another couple of days. She's got the heats tonight. But she'll be going for gold in that. Or I can't, off the top of my head, it's Wednesday or Thursday, I think. And she's going for the 4x100 metre relay as well. She could easily be a triple World Championship medalist by the end of the week. And given, as Ewan told us just a couple of minutes ago when Johnny spoke to him earlier, you know, she was just a kit carrier at London 2012. By Rio 16, she was, you know, the British record holder. It is quite incredible the rise she's had.
I bet she got that kit around quick, don't you?
Yeah, she did. I bet she did. Yeah. I bet Usain Bolt was requesting especially yeah, she was carrying stuff around.
Got some socks.
Like Dash out the Incredibles. But yeah,
that's funny, Johnny.
That was funny. I've enjoyed that.
He's cracking up. Not the only stadium controversy though. By the way, we're speaking to Rob Harris from AP Associated Press, who's out there in Qatar at the moment as well, to get his take on it all. And I know he's been looking specifically at the World Cup preparations as well, how the stadiums and everything are getting on. So it'll be really interesting to hear what he's making of it. He tweeted a little video earlier of the rest and shelter area that the workers are provided with inside one of the stadiums that's being constructed. This is in Qatar, in the middle of the desert, of course, where it's 40 degrees. It's this little ramshackle sort of hut, you know, that is clearly not air conditioned. I mean, it's barely bigger than this little studio, if not smaller, and that's for all of the workers to take their shelter. It's absolutely shocking the conditions there, and meanwhile they are paying millions and millions of dollars just to keep those stadiums air conditioned so that people can actually play the sports that the World Championships or the World Cup or whatever it is are being hosted. It's a farcical situation. But yeah, it just does link to the Scotland-Samoa game at the Rugby World Cup earlier, which you may be interested to know. Scotland won 34-0, a really impressive performance from Scotland, entirely in keeping with their maddeningly inconsistent performance levels. Of course, thrashed by Ireland in the opening game, responded brilliantly today with a bonus point win. But a bit of controversy as well. One of the talking points was that the roof had been closed by the tournament organisers, and that raises the humidity level inside the stadium, which means that the ball is so much more slippery, there's so much more sweat around, and what do you know, a load of handling errors. Did it need to be closed? I don't think it did.
It's slippery
really
for both teams.
Oh,
right?
It is, Johnny. It is, but it's the spectacle that gets damaged ultimately, and you know whether
so the
or not you're
quality of the
playing,
play.
just the excitement levels are going to be diminished if you're going to have a less likelihood of scoring tries, free running rugby, all that kind of thing. That's what people want to see. You know, they want a bit of tension and drama and everything and all the rest of it. But ultimately, people want to see tries, and you've got a lower chance of seeing tries scored if the ball is slipping out your hands like a bar of soap.
Hey, Guy, did you see yesterday that performance by Wales against Australia?
Oh, wow.
What a game that was.
What a game. What a game that was. And, yeah, we're going to have a full sort of review of the Rugby World Cup of the weekend's action a bit later in the show. But an absolute standout game that will, I think, live long in the memory. One for the ages, that one for sure. And well done, Wales. You've got to say, I think they've edged, if they weren't already there, into that little subcategory, as I'm calling it, of New Zealand. You've got out on their own, England, South Africa, now Wales. You've got to consider them up there.
Yeah, and it's great they beat Australia, isn't it?
Yeah, it is nice. Although I don't like Wales much either.
Well, I'll tell you what, for me...
I was thinking about Nathan Lyon on his sofa, fumbling his cup of coffee.
For me, with each game I watch, I'm getting more Welsh. Before the World Cup, I knew I was an eighth Welsh. One game,
Can't stick you.
quarter Welsh. Another win, I'll be half Welsh. By the end of the tournament, I'll be singing Land of My Fathers.
What, when England beat them?
Welsh through and through, mate. You heard it here first. Now, England all the way.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're in.
Tenna men. Keep control.
You're in.
No.
Hi, I'm Marilyn from Oxfordshire. My current insurance company quoted £245 and 8 to reinsure. And a spokesman said, obtain me a price of £173.49 for the same cover. This was a fantastic saving for me. And next time my car insurance comes up for renewal, I will be going through a spokesman said. No doubt about that.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Mr. Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
I believe in reincarnation. I've left everything in my will to me.
Love sport. Well, I'm very fortunate to be joined in the studio by the British #1 broadcaster, Martin Allen. If only all British #1s could be up to his lofty standards, because the British #1 tennis player, Carl Edmund, has been beaten by a wildcard player at the China Open. It's his 5th straight defeat. He's the world number 34, Edmund, and he was defeated by Zhizhen Zhang, who is ranked 213. I've said this before and got in a bit of trouble for it. I'm of the opinion that he's just not quite good enough. We are joined on the line by George Belshaw, who's a tennis journalist for metro.co.uk. Good afternoon, George. Is Carl Edmund ever going to be really up there?
It's not looking great at the minute, I have to say. It's been quite a dramatic slump since a time when he, was close to the top 10. He was looking like someone who could be a top 10 player, was playing consistently good tennis. This time last year he won his first ATP Tour title. There was a lot of kind of promise for what the future held. And to be perfectly honest, this year has just been a complete and utter disaster, really. He's now lost 7 more matches than he's won this year, which, for a tennis player is really quite bad. This is the second time in the season he's lost 5 straight matches. He has had a knee problem earlier in the year, but you can't really say fitness was the problem today. He just looked completely shot of confidence. I don't know. There's serious problems for him. I do think he can, and he should be a guy who's in and around the top 30. He's more than capable of that, but I suspect this slide will keep going because he's still got a lot of points to defend for the rest of the season, so he could find himself well outside the top 50 by the end of the season.
He's still without a coach. Is that part of the problem?
Well, not really, I don't think. I mean, he was bad with the coaches he had as well. So, to suddenly say no one's fault would be a kind of, the blame lies with him ultimately. I think, the coach he lost at the very start of the year, Frederick Rosengren, he was a good mentor and he kind of slotted in well with this coaching team. And I'm not sure necessarily getting rid of Mark Hilton recently was the right move. I think it would have done better to be adding a coach in on top of that. I think Hilton is a good kind of day-to-day coach, but maybe not like the manager. You could say he's a good assistant manager, I suppose, in many ways. But he's decided to get rid of him as well. So it's going to be a complete overhaul, whatever he does. But he's just quite a stubborn guy, Kyle. Not very willing to open up about accepting there's a problem with himself this season. He's always saying he's enjoying his tennis, despite the fact he looks completely and utterly miserable all year. So I think whether he's being honest with himself, who knows? But it's really worrying times for him. He's playing very badly, really.
Recent form aside, is he unlucky to be the first British #1 to come after Andy Murray? Because if he'd come after a Henman, our expectations wouldn't be so high. Do you think the public expect now the British number one to be challenging for slams?
It's a good question. I've personally not really found too many British fans criticising him for not doing that well. I think we're quite, particularly in tennis, quite a supportive fan base. We're used to being kind of second best. I don't necessarily think Murray's changed all that, but there definitely is some pressure on these guys. I'd actually argue Joanna Konta gets that side of pressure a lot more than Kyle Edmonds, because he's not had too many big slam runs. He got to the Australian Open semi-finals about a couple of years ago, but since then he's never really been beyond the third round, and that's normally when the kind of pressure's on. So I don't think there's been too much expectation from supporters, and if there's huge expectations on him right now, then I'd say that's very misplaced at the minute.
On the other side of the coin, Dan Evans is looking good. How far can he go in the China Open?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's going to be a tougher next match for him against either Gael Monfils or John Isner, two experienced guys. He has beaten Isner earlier this year, and Monfils can kind of go walkabouts at these tournaments, so you never quite know. I wouldn't say Dan has anything to particularly fear, but he's not far off from his career high ranking, which he was at before he was banned for substance abuse. So it's great for him. He's worked really hard since coming back. I know I'm not condoning or saying the cocaine ban was good for him, but it has really put his career in perspective and given him a kick up the backside that he probably needed. So it's good that he's applying himself. He, in my opinion, is comfortably the best British player right now. Cam Norrie's having a bit of an indifferent year as well. But obviously none of them quite at the heights of Andy Murray, but Dan is probably the one who's knocking on the door most at the minute. I think he can get inside the top 30, if not by the end of this year, early next year. I think he's genuinely on that path, which would be great to see.
Well, Andy Murray, meanwhile, has got a tough game tomorrow. He's got to take on Berrettini. How are you expecting that one to go?
Yes, it is tough. I mean, Berrettini's playing really well. The one thing I'd say is working in Murray's favour about this matchup is that Berrettini is he's kind of eighth at the minute in what we call the race to London, which is to get to the ATP finals. You do find sometimes guys who've never been in that position who think all of a sudden, ooh, I'm going to make it to London. They do suddenly kind of have a bit of a wobble mentally. So I think, that is the one glimmer of hope I see for Murray in that. But again, there were serious improvements from Murray last week. I thought he was operating at a level far above what we've seen from him in recent years, obviously with the hip problems. But, he looks fitter, stronger, sharper. So I'm expecting good things from him as well. I think it'll be a close match. I'd probably lean towards Berrettini right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if Murray can come through. And if he does come through, he'll play Cam Norrie, so that'll be a fun all-British clash as well.
George, great to chat to you. Thank you for your time. George Belshaw there, who's a tennis journalist for metro.co.uk. For now, Martin, I want to talk hair. And specifically, I want to talk about a certain Mr. Lyle Taylor, the Charlton striker, who of course started the season in such spectacular style. He's got previous of dyeing his hair pink in aid of Cancer Research UK, and he's doing it again. He's done it again. He's got a lovely pink mop up there now. What's your take on it?
Fantastic. When I first saw it, Johnny, I thought, what is he doing? And then you explained to me what it was all about. And God bless, I lost both my parents at quite young ages to cancer. So anything I could do, if I could get the details about why he's doing it and how you could donate some money to his cause, then I'd be more than happy to support him. And I like him. He's a good person, isn't he?
I tell you what, I've spoken to Lyle a couple of times.
Have you?
And of all the footballers I've ever interviewed over the phone, certainly current footballers, he is the nicest, most intelligent, most thoughtful. Normally, and we were talking about Charlton's cracking form last year. They're in cracking form this year, by the way. They just beat Leeds 1-0 at the weekend. But normally you go, Lyle, you're scoring goals. How does that feel? They go, yeah, it's great to score goals. And you go, which was your favourite goal? And they go, well, I scored from a long way out. That was a great goal. Not with Lyle Taylor. Lovely guy, thoughtful guy, without really meaning to. 2, he got us onto the state of politics in the country, the state of the nation, the way footballers can use their platform for good, which is something we were talking about last week with the likes of Hector Bellerin. He, of course, is at the forefront of this, and we'll see if we can get Lyle on the show this week for a chat about it.
That'd be good, wouldn't it?
He's a nice lad.
I'd like to speak to him. I'd like to find out all about his charity and why he's doing it.
He's an absolutely cracking
He's a good player as well, isn't he?
Well, I think he's out injured for a little bit now.
Oh, is he?
It's a problem for Charlton. Macaulay Bonne, of course, scored at
From
the
Orient,
weekend.
yeah.
From Orient, good player. But the thing about Taylor is he's one of those guys where he can score a goal from anywhere, and he can score all kinds of goals. And I think if they miss him for a while, tricky.
Yeah, testing time, but what a great result, as you said, winning away at Leeds. Was that right?
It was in the Lee Bowyer derby. I'll tell you one thing about Charlton. They're not going anywhere.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
Coming up on Love Sport Radio, Guy Watts
That's a
is
great
shocked
joke.
by Martin
Tell
Allen.
everybody that joke. Go
Not
on.
a chance. It is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. We're continuing our focus on United versus Arsenal, not just for tonight's game, but more broadly. Is it the greatest domestic rivalry we've ever had? If so, what's your greatest memory of it? Is it Keane versus Vieira? Is it Van Nistelrooy versus Keown? Get in touch. WhatsApp us 0208 70 20 558. Was it even, if you're a United fan, that terrible day, the 8-2? We'll have all that and more. We're going to be talking to Rob Harris, who's out in Doha. But first, it's time for the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 4. The Chancellor has announced plans to increase the national living wage,
raising it to match 2/3 of median earnings. That means, on current forecasts, this ambitious plan will bring the national living wage up to £10.50, giving 4 million people a well-earned pay rise.
Sajid Javid also says he'll bring the age threshold down to 21. He used his speech at the Conservative Party conference to announce investment in roads, buses and broadband, and reiterated Brexit will go ahead in 31 days' time, deal or no deal. Opposition leaders won't call for a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson this week. The leader of the Independent Group for Change met with others, including members of Labour and the SNP in Westminster earlier, to talk about how to stop a no-deal Brexit. Anna Soubry's denied claims they'll trigger a vote while the government is busy at the Tory party conference in Manchester.
We are confident actually there won't be contentious votes this week for all sorts of reasons.
Why not? Why not?
Because the Speaker has effectively told us so.
Two girls aged 13 and 16 have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a pensioner in Cambridgeshire. The man in his 80s was found dead at his home in Wisbech on Saturday. The teenagers have been bailed. The man's been convicted of murdering his ex-girlfriend before burying her in her garden in southwest London. The 32-year-old fled the country after strangling his victim in Kew in March. A man who escaped from a prison camp in China 17 years ago has been found living in a cave. Police used drones to search mountains he'd been hiding in near his hometown following a tip-off from the public. And in sports, Scotland have eased past Samoa, keeping alive their hopes of progressing at the Rugby Union World Cup. They secured a 34-0 win in their second Pool A match in Japan. Gregor Townsend's side were awarded a late penalty try, meaning they secured a crucial bonus point as well. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Young, it's 8, and he scored 2 absolute beauties.
Man United might not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table, let him sign it, let him write whatever numbers he wants to put on there, give him what he's done now since he's come in, and let him sign the contract and go. Ollie's at the wheel, man, he's doing it, he's doing his thing. Man United are back.
Guy Watts is clearly enjoying his afternoon. This is Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and special guest Martin Allen with you till 7. We heard, of course, the commentary there from that 8-2. We're talking Manchester United versus Arsenal today as one of the great rivalries, one of those competitions that is always close, always a battle. Not on that day. I remember it very, very clearly, Martin. I was stuck in traffic coming back from, I think, my uncle's house. Proper standstill, and my phone kept buzzing. It's 4, it's 5, it's 6, it's 7, it's 8. That was in 2011. Arsenal, if we're honest, haven't won at Old Trafford since then, and they haven't pushed on either. What's your take? Are they ever going to get back to those heights of 2003?
Well, it's going to take a while, Johnny. We've seen with Man City, who have really pushed the boundaries back now, what an unbelievable team they are. I saw them play at West Ham a few weeks ago and they won 4 or 5-0 and they were more than comfortable. And it was against the West Ham team that, you know, as we see, they're up into, 4th place now. And it was a brilliant performance from Man City. And all the West Ham fans were there, walked away, held their hands up and say, well, our team played well, but they were just brilliant. Can Arsenal catch them? Well, I saw them play last week, Johnny. Both fullbacks, Bellerin come on as a sub, and Tierney, the £25 million player from Celtic, left back, he was superb on the night. And of course, the other one that you like, Holding, the centre back, he's now back into the squad. So you've really got 3 new defenders arrived into the team, and Unai Emery will be absolutely delighted with that because that has been a little bit of their weakness.
In terms of that 8-2, do you remember it? How did you feel at the time?
No, I don't remember it.
Do you not?
Not really, no.
It just was like a dagger through the heart. Guy Watts is looking pretty smug out there in the control booth. Guy, from the United point of view.
I remember it, Johnny. I remember
it. Oh, do you really? Go on then, what was it like?
Well, I do remember it, and maybe I look smug. Maybe that's my natural look. I don't know. But there is obviously an element of fondness looking back on it. But the problem is that it is another reminder of how far United have fallen, and I think United's fall and decline has been more dramatic than Arsenal's. Arsenal's was quite gradual. I don't know if you'd agree necessarily, but I see it as having been a gradual decline from the high point. I think really was 2004, but maybe on the surface it was 2006. Champions League final, but that was when you left Highbury as well, and there are other kind of bits and pieces that play into that. But my point is that since 2006, it was kind of a gradual decline, and under Wenger it would occasionally sort of creep up. There'd be an FA Cup, or maybe there'd be a completely fallow season, but it was a sort of steady decline in that Arsenal just kept getting a little bit smaller a club every season. Man United went from league champions in 2013 to, even by 2014, after a season of David Moyes, and certainly a couple of years later with another couple of bad years, a laughingstock really with the money we were throwing at transfers and moreover the money we were throwing at wages. you became a laughingstock. And 2011 we won 8-2, and if you look at the team we won 8-2 with, you think, what? Cleverley and Anderson starting in the centre of midfield. Phil Jones starting at right back. It's crazy, but it happened. And the thing was, as a United fan, it was something that you took for granted a little bit. It was fantastic. You were laughing at Arsenal, but you thought, well, this can happen under Fergie. We can turn up and put in a magic performance. And against this Arsenal team, to be honest, West Ham might do this next week.
Thing is, Guy, it was only a couple of years ago under Jose Mourinho that Man United were runners-up in the Premier League.
That's
that
true.
Right?
81 points.
Yeah, and he said, this has been one of my finest achievements to get Manchester United into second place. And everybody looked at him with a bit of like, So he kind of put it out there right then that team was just okay, and how well they'd done to actually get to runners-up. So it wasn't that long ago. I would say, what has happened since then? And why since then have they not kicked on, strengthened, and got better and better and better?
Yeah, I kind of want to pull you up on that though, Martin, because by Mourinho making such an emphasis of coming second being such a brilliant achievement, imagine Sir Alex Ferguson talking about coming second as a brilliant achievement. He would have absolutely none of that. If he didn't win the league, it didn't, nothing else mattered really in terms of how well they'd done. And for Mourinho to say, look, Man United are doing exceptionally to come second in the league, and second by 19 points, remember, it was papering over cracks. It's not that everything's gone wrong since then, it's that it was all going wrong then as well. It's just that Mourinho managed for a season to paper over those cracks.
But that, I think, how you replied and responded to that is part of the problem. Everybody thinks, oh, Sir Alex Ferguson this, Sir Alex Ferguson that. What you forget is that Man City, across the other side of the city, have spent hundreds of millions of pounds on building and making the most unbelievable team, and they've overtaken Manchester United when it came to player recruitment. They've gone way past them. But there's a mindset still within that club that because of Sir Alex Ferguson and what he did, we should try and emulate what Sir Alex done and do it how Sir Alex did it. It's changed. It's different. Now you need a director of football. You need a football manager who's going to help the manager, who is normally nowadays a head coach, put it all together. And Manchester United have got Ed Woodward and his mate. I think they're financial bankers doing it for Manchester United. At Man City, they've got a guy called Tiki
Bergstan.
Well, surely sooner or later they're going to have to point somebody that's going to get this global market for player recruitment, whereas Sir Alex Ferguson, more often than not, and I stand to be corrected by you, Guy, because you know your Man United stuff, but more often than not at the beginning he bought players from around Great Britain, then he bought some players in from Europe, and it wasn't until quite a long time later where he started to bring in some players from South America. Global recruitment is worldwide, and Man United have not moved with the times.
I think when we're looking at the decline of both of these clubs, as you say, Martin, we've got to look at the recruitment. And I think in the last decade, they've both got it drastically wrong, but in drastically different ways. For me, in the last few years of the Wenger reign, there was a real arrogance about the recruitment. There was this constant drive to buy unknown stars and turn them from fledglings into talents, which is great. It's really great to see as a fan. Emery, to his credit, is doing that with Guendouzi now, and it is great to watch. But it doesn't work long term if you as a club do all the hard work, and let's be honest, you drop points by playing them when they're not ready, and then once they're ready, you don't renew the contract and they go to Manchester City like Nasri did, or they go to United like Van Persie did, or they go back to Barcelona like Fabregas did.
Or to Juventus with Ramsey.
Well, quite. And for me, with Wenger, there was an arrogance about letting ready-made world-class players, like Ashley Cole, by the way, leave the club and replacing them with youngsters like a Gael Clichy, for example. United, for me, post-Ferguson, have gone too far in the other direction, where particularly under Van Gaal and under Mourinho to an extent, there was a lot of the I'm going to buy a ready-made, in inverted commas, world-class star. I'm going to throw money at the problem, and that's going to solve it. Cases in point. Angel Di Maria. Cases in point. Paul Pogba. Alexis Sanchez. How many of those big money moves have actually worked for United? I'd argue very, very few. And actually, it's only in the last year, with, and credit to Solskjaer, the recruitment he did in the summer, United are starting, getting back to getting it right.
Absolutely. And one thing, I'm going back onto the Arsenal and jumping across to Arsenal, after watching them play last week against Notts Forest, they have got some very, very talented young players. And it looks to me, with those young players coming through, blended in to the recruitment of Aubameyang, Lacazette, and who's the other guy they just bought for 72 million? Pepe. Not quite got as much quality in the final third as the other two, but he's got blistering pace. And the guy from Real Madrid who I saw play against Norwich a few weeks ago, Ceballos, as you call him.
Ceballos.
Yeah, but you say it in Spanish way, don't you?
Si.
Ceballos. Ceballos. Good player, Ceballos. Then
Good evening.
And then with the two fullbacks to come into their team and with Holding to come into their team, I'm sure he'll play with Luiz with Holding first, won't he? Give them a try.
Possibly even Socrates.
And if the crowd get behind them like they did last week against Forest, the atmosphere at the Emirates last week was absolutely superb. And if Granit Xhaka can actually take on the role and be a good captain, and there's not be so much scepticism towards him in a positive fashion, it could soon start to turn, I think, in Arsenal's favour. And I said a couple of weeks to you, we had a bit of banter, Johnny, because you were obviously Arsenal. And I said, well, West Ham will finish above them. I would actually say now, looking at the young players there, looking at the players that have just come back and the arrival of Tierney, I think Arsenal are going to be, I think Arsenal are on their way back, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and if Arsenal win tonight, they'll be level with Leicester City. They'll be 2 points behind Manchester City and, of course, 7 behind Liverpool. I think you were spot on there talking about this Arsenal squad with the youngsters, but the word you used, and it's the key one, is blended. And I know that I am a critic of Unai Emery, but this is the one thing he's got spot on. And for me, as much as I loved Arsene Wenger, this is what he got wrong. It's that blending. It's okay, Martinelli played against Nottingham Forest and he did very well, but you've got Martinelli in the mix with an Aubameyang. The equivalent for Wenger would have been selling Aubameyang and then just going, cool, Martinelli, you're our striker now, effectively. There was this focus on, all right, Fabregas has gone, it's Nasri. All right, Henry's gone, it's Van Persie, despite the fact that he's injured. Then Van Persie goes and you've got absolutely no one.
Well, for those people that don't know about Martinelli, he's, 18? 18 years old. I saw him play for the first time last week against Notts Forest. Yes, it's a championship club, but what a player. He's quick, he's direct, he's aggressive. He scored a brilliant header. He works the opposition. He's got energy, enthusiasm. He's got pace. And the midfield player that you had, Willock. What a good player. Energy, pace. And you say, how could they compare to players, say, at Man City? Well, those two could have got athleticism and are mobile enough to go up against the top players. And that is what you need if you're going to get Arsenal back up into that top 4, is can they, athletically, are they mobile enough? And I think Arsenal have really moved up in my estimations.
And when we're talking about mobility, the wing-backs are a huge part of that. Unai Emery has been criticised both by fans and by people in the media so far this season, but he says he's delighted to have some of his first-choice defenders back.
Amazing news. The atmosphere with them is going up, and in the Emirates, for example, on Tuesday, it was amazing, the reaction, the people with Love Holding, with Kieran Tierney, with Hector Bellerin, and we can be better competitive team with them.
We got some breaking news into the Love Sports studio, which is that Cardiff City have been ordered to pay a transfer fee of €6 million, that's £5.3 million, to Nantes for Emiliano Sala. Of course, he tragically died while travelling from France to join his new club. The transfer fee was supposedly £15 million. Cardiff had argued that they were not liable for any of it because Sala was not officially their player at the time of his death. It feels that there has been some kind of medium reached here. Incredibly sad, the entire situation. Hopefully this can finally bring a little bit of closure to it. Coming up, we're going to have more on the brilliance of Dina Asher-Smith.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. and make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm from the Shropshire area and I'm a business development manager. I use a spokesman said for my car insurance where I've saved over £500 and also on travel insurance as well. So in total, me and my family have saved about £600. I would definitely use it again and I would definitely recommend it.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Mr Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr Davies.
In one go?
Yes, Mr Davies.
Today?
Yes, Mr Davies.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr Davies.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you mess with the USA, I guarantee they'll be hell to pay.
Love sport. Dina Asher-Smith made history with her 100-metre silver medal last night. She's the first female British sprinter to win a World Championship medal since Kathy Cook in Helsinki all the way back in 1983. That's 36 years ago. Let's hear what Dina had to say afterwards.
I'm really, really happy to have come away with a silver medal in that race. I mean, and to have run a national record and a personal best as well, that's all you can ask for in a World Championships final. If you want to perform well and you want to perform to the best of your ability, this is the place to do it.
Well, we're joined on the line by Rob Harris, who is Global Sports Correspondent for AP. Rob, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Just how impressive was Dina last night? And I suspect she's not done yet.
Yeah, it was a really impressive performance given the competitor she was coming up against with Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce really producing a dominant performance. It was a fourth World Championship title in the 100 metres. Impressive in itself, having come back from giving birth, and she was talking about defying those who were perhaps writing her off at one point. But yeah, it's a great British success last night for Dina Asher-Smith, and really sets her up well now for the Tokyo Olympics next year. Obviously, it's been an upward trajectory for her at the European Championships in Berlin. She had a hat-trick of gold. So, things certainly on the up for her.
And, of course, she's got the 200 metres coming up tonight. Can she win gold there?
Well, yes. That's what she'll be looking at now because Shelly-Ann Fraser-Pryce pulled out of that 200 metres. So, it does clear the path. That helps Dina Smith potentially find a path to gold. And Daphne Shippers as well has pulled out. So, there could be a night of glory at the Khalifa Stadium here tonight. And certainly one thing that we hope for is that maybe some more fans in the stadium.
Well, Rob, talk to us about that. I've seen photos on social media that make it look almost empty last night. We're hearing reports in the press that there were maybe 2,000 spectators there in a 40,000-seater. You were there. What was the atmosphere like?
I mean, the atmosphere was absolutely appalling for a World Championships. I mean, the organisers, the IAAF, have done a lot more to bring in the crowds. I mean, to sit in front and watch elite sporting competition at a World Championships with more empty seats than those occupied shows that something has gone terribly wrong in the planning. I mean, they knew from the first couple of days the fact they weren't selling out the stadium, the fact there were many empty seats, having already covered a large section with tarpaulin as well, and with logos on. So there was no proactive moves at all, it would seem, to try to fill a stadium. And, it does, as some have said, it let the athletes down. It's their big stage to perform. And, they do deserve large crowds.
But there is also the point, Rob, that many people won't be surprised to see empty crowds in Doha because of the heat, because of various rules that are in place in the nation more broadly. Do you think it was the correct or even an appropriate site to hold these championships?
I mean, it's very important that events are shared around the world like this, so they aren't just a preserve of a few nations. And often that means choosing a time of year that is more suitable for that country to be able to host it. Otherwise, you would restrict things like the Olympics being held in a very narrow field of countries as well. The stadium is cooled at night, so that is not a significant issue. The marathon, though, had to be run at midnight. There's the walking events as well through the night, so that's not ideal. Then you've got the organisers who have just come out with a statement in the last few minutes. They're blaming things like having to schedule the events for international TV viewers and also the fact that the start of the working week. They're also blaming the political dispute in the region as well. The IAAF, run by Seb Coe, are pushing all responsibility on the lack of seats to the local organisers.
And as a spectator, how hot was it when you were watching the athletics? Was it absolutely boiling?
Well, it's actually the
there?
opposite at times. I mean, it can actually feel too cold at times because we are
cold. I thought it was boiling hot.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. These are air-conditioned stadiums.
So is it cold?
It can get very cold, and it's actually an issue for the athletes because they can go from being in the cooled track to the warming track, which is not air-conditioned, to inside buildings which are even colder than the track. And when you're sitting in the stands, you are getting gusts of cold air that are blowing onto you. So, yeah, it does often mean at times you might consider a jumper. You then walk outside, and it can be up to 40 degrees. I was in one of the World Cup stages today. It was 42 degrees out there. I then went to another stadium that's already completed an hour or so away for the World Cup. And although it was 42 degrees outside, they had it cooled to about 18 degrees inside the stadium because they've got this cooling technology. So, yeah, it can be you can be switching between climates quite rapidly here.
Wow.
And how are preparations for that World Cup going, Rob?
Well, the stadium for the opening game of the final that I was in today, building is still underway. Obviously, there's more than 3 years to go. It's in the city of Lusail, which has been built from scratch in the entire city. So, yeah, I mean, things look like they're progressing well. The stadium I was in as well at Al Wakra, that's going to host games up to the quarterfinals. That's already complete and is hosting games already. They're also crucially developing the roads because actually the traffic can get quite bad as well. Looking outside from high up here, there's quite a traffic jam near me head towards the stadium. So, yeah, the traffic's an issue, but there's a metro now completed which should help with that vision that they do have in terms of ensuring there are crowds at the World Cup, which is fans can go to more than one game a day because you can go between the stadiums fairly quickly.
And Rob, just finally, what have you seen of the conditions for the workers out there in Qatar? Because we keep hearing horror stories of terrible conditions. Is this just scaremongering or is there something in it?
Yeah, I mean, there have been many concerns over the years about conditions for workers. I mean, after Qatar won the World Cup bid in 2010, rights groups started to focus significantly on things like worker accommodation, crammed conditions, the lack of health and safety on sites for infrastructure across the whole country, including days like I saw today when you're working in extreme heat. Since then, particularly on the World Cup sites, there were rigorous health and safety measures, as they would say it. I was hearing from one of the site managers today, and they do claim to take these things seriously. They're certainly surrounded by enough health and safety items and posters and stuff around, and the various cooling technologies that even the workers can wear. Some of the more recent criticism from the rights group centres on things like non-payment of wages. This is just generally across Qatar and part of the infrastructure more broadly, and about workers not paying the workers on time. You also hear other concerns about ongoing about something called the Kafala system, which does limit your ability to switch between jobs and leave the country as well. But the point was made to me today by a site manager at the Khalifa Stadium that workers can keep their passports. That was a significant issue in the past that has been dealt with at least by the World Cup organisers, and also they've also been blacklisting companies, particularly in South Asia, that bring workers over here for charging the fees just to help to get them the job. So these are some of the issues, and undoubtedly Qatar having the World Cup has led to some improvements of working conditions and rights for the workers as well, and the accommodation that they are put up in. But the likes of Amnesty say now the pace of reforms need to accelerate in terms of things like the non-payment of workers, and they'll say there's always this stain on events like the World Championships because the facilities being used were built when the conditions and worker welfare was less of a priority, and there was suffering, and there have been deaths on some World Cup sites as well. These are not remember the figures offhand, but they are, I think, around 10 potentially. Some, a few of them are work related, not the thousands that some have speculated on.
Rob, really concerning stuff, but great to speak to you. Thank you for those supporters. He's spoken out after the club handed Moussa Sissoko a new 4-year deal. Sissoko's 30. This is going to tie him to the club until 2023, when he will be 34. And Pochettino has said it's a decision from the club and the player to sign a contract. Basically going, nothing to do with me, Gov. And the subtext, of course, is, I wouldn't have done it. Why would you give him a 4-year deal? He's 30. Why is he making this kind of comment? Because he's surely just adding fuel to the fire of speculation about his future.
Yeah, I'll make you absolutely right, Johnny. It's a tough one. I suppose we're just reading into it, that we see it and read it that way. We don't actually know that he's not been involved in it, although it suggests that it's been done above him. But it certainly does suggest that. And it was only 6 weeks ago, I think, Johnny, he said that deals of players in and out of Tottenham Hotspur are not done by him, they are done by Daniel Levy.
Yeah.
Whereas at Man City, it's Pep Guardiola, and at Liverpool, it's Jurgen Klopp, and he kind of suggested that he wanted that role to do that, but it would never happen at Spurs because it's Daniel Levy's job.
You're spot on, and it's pretty clear that Pochettino's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about that. For me as a supporter, though, I look at this and go, you know what, Mauricio? Even if they did go over your head, even if you weren't consulted, even if you directly told them not to and you were ignored, you are the manager of that football club. Keep your mouth shut. I'm not asking you to say you thought it was brilliant, but don't come out and stir the pot like this. How do you feel as a manager? Do you have a right to, if you like, protest in the press?
Well, I think we've seen a couple of those. There's another one that's been mentioned that I read up on earlier, and it's also at Manchester United, where Ted Woodward apparently has given a kind of a vote of confidence, without quite being a vote of confidence, to the manager, saying that he needs time to build the team and to get it to what Ollie likes on the day of playing Arsenal. I mean, how ridiculous is that? That's all come out and blasted across. All the players will be reading that, and they could see it, just as we could at Tottenham, as though it's unhappiness behind the scenes and giving him that dreaded, as we all know, and I know for sure the amount of times I've been sacked, the vote of confidence. He shouldn't be saying that. That should not be being put out there.
Is that the kiss of death, Martin?
It's not 100% the kiss of death. I would say it's a kiss of death for him, not Ollie. It shouldn't be everybody slamming Ollie for not having these players and having a team that's not as good as what it was when we had the Battle of Great Britain, Arsenal versus Man United, Keane and Vieira fronting up to each other. It's because he hasn't got the players. Ed Woodward sold that player. He should have had someone lined up to come in to join Man United well before that, months before that, so it's all clear, done and dusted to make Man United back up to the best. And if he's being undermined, and he's got to be the one in that technical area, stood in that technical area with players that are not good enough, not up to the standard, when he's protested, probably privately, that he needs to strengthen the spine of that team and get Pogba out, who don't want to be there, and he said that himself, get him out. You are seeing right at the very top level with Tottenham and with Manchester United the problems and the difficulties to manage at all levels, and even more so at that level.
Well, it's fighting talk from Martin Allen, and there's plenty where that came from right up until 7 o'clock.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Love Sport.
Can you wait, Martin Allen, to sing that along with God Save the Queen when England win the Rugby World Cup?
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it, Johnny? Can you just feel it, Johnny?
It's coming home.
Are you talking about the rugby or the one in Doha?
Both, mate. Doesn't matter how hot it is.
We've been
Harry
talking
Kane
about
scores goals.
We're talking about how cold it is in the stand at Doha for the fans, and it is just about as cold in this studio. It's
we'll sort it out for you, Martin.
freezing. I feel like
he's going full Pochettino. He's complaining to the press.
No.
Wasn't my decision to make the studio this cold. That's a decision between my co-presenter and the producer.
Yeah, but you've got a roll neck jumper on.
And you're dressed like a lumberjack. Guy Watts, let's have an update from the Rugby World Cup.
Shots fired. Blimey, yeah, of course, that was World in Union that you heard there originally, the Rugby World Cup song, and it's been a dramatic couple of days. I mean, wow. Where to begin? Ireland losing to Japan, the host nation getting an incredible victory that doesn't quite match what they did against South Africa 4 years ago, but it's not that far behind that absolute epic between Wales and Australia yesterday. And earlier on today, we had Scotland playing Samoa. It was do or die for the Scots after they were thrashed by Ireland in their opening game. They needed to win, and they did. They won 34-0 against Samoa. What could have been a difficult game, they navigated quite comfortably, and Gregor Townsend, the Scotland coach, had this to say afterwards.
That was a true reflection of who we are and what we're capable of and what playing for Scotland means. That was a tough challenge that they had to rise up and face, knowing that if we underperformed tonight, we were out of the World Cup. So to see the effort, the togetherness was excellent.
leaves Pool A as well, by the way, really, really open, and we'll come to that in just a moment. The pool that also contains Ireland and Japan and Samoa, who have got a victory under their belts against Russia as well. So really, really open and all sorts of possibilities there. Wales, you'd have thought, had a clearer path to the last 8 after their win against Australia. Johnny, I don't know why you're fist pumping. You're not Welsh, you're English, okay? English.
Yeah, but he supports Arsenal and he kind of likes Tottenham. What's that?
Plastic, Martin. I mean, he's a plastic. He's plastic. Alan Wynne-Jones, though, the Wales captain, isn't getting too carried away. They did make it 2 wins out of 2 yesterday, but he says they're not celebrating their qualification from the group just yet.
It's just 2 games in for us. We got another 2 games, and the results that have gone made those teams very dangerous, even more so. So we've got a bit of a longer prep for the next one. You know, it's just nice that we get to enjoy each other's company in the build-up to another international, which will be hopefully another special moment as a squad.
Guy, obviously we're all desperate for England to win the World Cup. But if they don't, surely you'd rather Wales than anybody else. Wales or a British side.
Scotland, they've got no chance.
England.
I love the aborted Welsh accent there.
Well, I got halfway through it, and I just thought it's not that wise.
No, it's not
Can't
that good.
you speak Welsh then, boy?
Not very well, Martin. No.
Would I rather? I would rather. It's difficult because I actually don't really like, in sporting terms, many of the other rugby playing nations, and I think part of the way the Six Nations culture works is that you kind of have to hate everyone because they're all such big games. And let's be honest, nearly every other team in that competition considers us the enemy, right? You know, with France it's Le Crunch, with Scotland it's the history of being, I think, in rugby and football, the oldest international game. Wales just absolutely hate us. Our rivalry with Ireland's actually quite friendly in relative terms, but it's not particularly friendly in real terms when it comes to the rugby playing nations between them. I mean, Italy, no one really cares about either, so there's not a lot of friendliness between us and the home European nations, let's be honest. So I wouldn't be rooting for Wales automatically. If they were playing Australia in the final, then I'd consider it, because I really like Australia.
Zealand, you would support Wales?
No chance.
I don't know. I think
No chance.
I am part Welsh.
They're up
but
the road.
You can't be a little bit pregnant. You
what do they
either
think
support
about us?
England or Wales.
What do they think about us? They hate us.
Wales would
no
not have
way
been
am I supporting them.
Lads.
Would not have been supporting England in the 2003 final.
And don't get me wrong, it's England through and through. But if England were to go out, Wales next in line.
Yeah, but how do you both look at this? Who's going to win the World Cup if England don't? Where do you get that mindset from? Where does that creep into your DNA? You are English. We are going to win the World Cup. There will be tough challenges and difficult games to play, but we will win. Who will win if we don't? Where's that come from? No way.
You haven't been watching New Zealand, have you?
I don't care about New Zealand. They get some injuries. We've got Joe Cocolongo on the wing.
Cock and a singer.
Oh,
Close
what
enough.
a play. What a player. We've got ours are just peaking, slowly coming along, one step at a time. Eddie knows what he's up to.
He does. It's
Inspiring stuff. Hairs on the back of my neck.
Can we
Although
get
that might be the cold, actually.
What if we don't? You said that about the cricket.
All right, I think it was hypothetical as much as anything, Martin. But yeah, good to see your passion
Just
levels
got
high.
My head has disappeared.
But yeah, an impressive performance from Scotland because they were so disappointing against Ireland, and I feel like
Who was it against?
Samoa.
Come on, how good is that? They're
What do you mean?
rubbish, Samoa, aren't they?
You still 34-0 though, convincing.
It's the first time they've ever been nilled in a World Cup, I think.
Well, there you go. You know,
They're not
Samoa
that good,
have-
are they?
But they're not
They're
bad.
not that good, but Scotland needed a big response and they had it. And a word on Alan Wynne-Jones, the Wales captain,
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
he was awesome.
Because he has surpassed Gethin Jenkins, a fellow legend of the game. And, you know, I'm not too small a person to be able to begrudgingly give these guys a bit of credit where
Yeah.
it is due. Two legends of the game there, and Alan Wynne-Jones has surpassed Gethin Jenkins for the number of international appearances. That's, of course, Wales caps combined with appearances for the Lions.
He
of
is a
which
leader,
Alan
isn't he?
Wynne-Jones has 9.
He's
He
a leader.
is, and I was watching earlier a couple of rugby videos, and particularly, I don't know why, I certainly don't know the words, but renditions of Land of Our Fathers. And before the 2013 Grand Slam decider in Cardiff, don't give me all that, Johnny. If you pump your fist once more when we mention Wales, your mic's going off for good.
Done.
And it is known as one of the most rousing renditions of it, and one of the most passionate the Cardiff Millennium Stadium Principality
It's
is
awesome,
now,
isn't it?
has
Awesome.
ever been. And Alan Wynne-Jones, 6 and a bit years ago, looks every bit as old as he does now. He looked 45, 50 then, and he looks maybe 52 now. I mean, he's not aged much, is my point, but he is such a warrior, and he's always looked like a warrior. I can't imagine him being young. You know, I was watching him.
5-year-old with a beard.
He must have been, Johnny, and thinning hair already, but he is such a warrior and such a leader. And I think when you've got a player like that, he is Martin Johnson-esque. When you've got a player like that, you have a chance because everyone raises their level to be at his. And when you've got that kind of leadership and the coaching that they've got in Warren Gatland, I think they've got a chance, Wales.
Yeah, they've got a chance to get to the semi-finals, I think, don't you?
The semi-finals, yes, because they could now avoid England in the quarter-finals, which means they might only have to play France, for example. I think they'd fancy their chance against France. And then they'd be in the semi-finals where I think they'd probably lose to likely South Africa.
But let's not mess around here. England have to be right up there in terms of favourites. I know we've only played Tonga and the USA, but equally, as the old cliche goes, you can only beat what's in front of you. The depth that we showed in that USA win with the guys coming into the side, the likes of McConaughey, the likes of Coconut Singer, I properly back us.
Yeah, Johnny, I'm getting slightly carried away probably, but I think South Africa have had one big test and they failed it, not terribly, but they weren't really that impressive in losing to New Zealand when we expected that could be a real upset. New Zealand's first ever pool stage defeat at Rugby World Cup. It didn't really come close to materialising, and I think England are probably second favourites now. And I don't think that's a bad place to be. We've obviously got two big games against Argentina and France coming up. I think win both those will be in a great place ahead of the quarter-final, and genuinely, I'm trying to be as rational and level as I can be here. I think that Wales result was good for England. I think that because of everything that goes with it, it would have been trickier, hypothetically, to play Wales in a quarter-final than Australia. I think Australia are a team that have a one-off big performance in them, and it could happen against England or at any time, but I think that we are a more consistent and better team across the board, and Wales coming top would mean Australia coming second. England, of course, favourites to top our group, which means that our path to the semi-final would involve beating Australia in a quarter-final, and that I would back us to do.
And do you think, in all seriousness, we could beat Wales? Because that I like that guy yesterday, Bigger.
Dan Bigger, yeah.
Yeah, he was good, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was good, and then Reece Patchell came
good.
on, did well in his place, and they've got strength and depth just like England do, and for a country that's only got a population of a few million, it is remarkable how strong a rugby
nation they all play
are.
rugby, don't they?
They do all play rugby.
That's why their football teams look very good.
Yeah, well, they got to the semi-finals of the Euros before we did, to be fair.
Once. First time in 40 years, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was the same with us, wasn't
ain't great, is it? We've won the World Cup, mate.
Yeah, that's
they
true.
Haven't.
Yeah, who are you, Wales? So, yeah, it's definitely one that I think would be a banana skin for England, Wales, but I think we could, and potentially
And what about that New Zealand team? They are obviously the favourites, aren't they?
They are, and they've named a team today that I think has got 10 or 11 changes from that South Africa game for their next pool game. It
Who
includes
are they playing?
3 brothers, and that's all 3 of the Barrett brothers that are in the squad, which is quite remarkable. I know you come from a sporting family, Martin, but to have 3 brothers all
it's
playing,
different, isn't it? Yeah.
all playing for the same team and the best team in the world. Wow, I mean, the parents watching that must be pretty proud. I mean, Bowden Barrett, Scott Barrett and Geordie Barrett all starting for New Zealand. What a phenomenal achievement that is from the Barrett family. And Johnny, before we finish on the Rugby World Cup for now, I know you want to do one of your favourite bits. It's become a daily feature.
It is my favourite.
World Cup Sock Watch.
Absolute favourite. It is the ITV World Cup Sock Watch.
Remind people why we're doing this. Now, what this is an honour of.
For a bit of context, ITV, in their wonderful coverage of the World Cup, decided to go for the authentic Japanese look. So they went for a traditional dojo-style room with tatami floors. Now, tatami are a kind of mat, but what they didn't know is it's very disrespectful in Japan to wear shoes on a tatami floor. So having got this, they went and did their first bit of demonstration of a rugby tactic. All of the players, Wilkinson, Delalio, all got their shoes on. The complaints flooded in. You cannot wear shoes on a tatami floor. So now they've kept the tatami floor. They're doing it shoeless, which means we get to see their socks, which in turn has given rise to the sensational feature ITV Sock Watch. It is a cracking offering today. My hypothesis, Martin, was that we're going to see a kind of arms race in terms of socks, where we'd see someone go for a slightly snazzy number and they'd amp it up every day and try and outdo each other. Well, we had Mark Pugac presenting on Friday. He had a little bit of an orange tip to his sock. His replacement in today's coverage in terms of the ITV presenters has gone one better. A black sock, but with yellow dots on. So he is our flair choice for today. Sir Clive Woodward ticking along very, very nicely. His offering on Friday was an understated but slightly flamboyant black sock with a light blue toe. Today, he's gone for more of a white toe, but still not content with a basic black. That is today's ITV World Cup sock watch.
You are keeping track of all this, aren't you, Johnny?
I am.
You
not
are
messing around.
Excellent. All right, well, we're going to be getting Martin's thoughts on Derby County in just a moment after this.
Guy, sock it to me.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Stop paying too much for your energy bills. Brian saved money on his at aspokesmansaid.com. Can you?
I'm Brian from Swadlincote, South Derbyshire, and I saved about £400 on my energy bill with a Spokesman Said. The iSpokesman Said website was very easy to use, and the money I saved I put towards a holiday.
Compare home energy quotes from the UK's biggest suppliers in just a matter of minutes with aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Monday is a truly awful way to spend 1/7 of your life. I guarantee it.
This is Love Sport.
We're continuing our coverage of the fallout from that terrible crash involving Derby County players at the end of last week. And one person who wasn't driving a car but was in one of the vehicles was Richard Keogh, the club captain and centre-half. We're now hearing he has seriously damaged two ligaments in his knee, and he's going to be out for 15 months. Now, beyond that just being a terrible injury, Martin, he's 33. He's out of contract at Derby at the end of the season. That means when he comes back from this injury, he'll be a 34-year-old without a club, trying to find a new employer without having played any football for over a year. Obviously, we hope he gets back to full strength, full fitness, all of that. But is this a potential career ender?
Yeah, it does seem like it, and he'll be carrying a lot of mental anguish as well, being the club captain. I think there was the option for all the players to take club cars or taxis home. Yeah. And, he's obviously piled on, from what we've read, allegedly, onto the back seat when the cars have crashed. And now we're reading that this injury is going to keep him, as you say, for 15 months. That is going to be a real tough one for him. Being out of contract as well, I'm sure he'll do his rehab there. But mentally, coping and thinking to himself, why the hell did I do that? Why the hell did I get in that car? Why the hell didn't I say, when everybody else was leaving, why didn't we all leave at the same time? After the dinner, they probably had a few beers, had a game of darts or pool in that. It was a country pub. It weren't anywhere like in the bright lights of London, was it? It's in the middle of nowhere. Perhaps he's going to be thinking, and you know mentally that he settles down, he manages the situation, looks after himself, and then the other two players, it's been spoke about whether it's gross misconduct or whether their contracts can be terminated, because they're obviously paying those lads quite a lot of money. and whether Derby County would want to terminate their contracts. Because the question that you could throw out there is it gross misconduct?
Well, the question for you as a manager, and of course we don't know all the details of the case, which I'm sure will be forthcoming, how does it work for a football club in this context? Because certainly the allegation is that Lawrence and Mason Bennett have behaved very, very badly. But they are also very good footballers. They're very good football players. They're important football players for Derby County. And the club, I'm sure, won't be impressed by any element of this situation. But equally, if they do terminate their contracts, might that be a case of cutting off their nose to spite their face?
Yeah, it's a real difficult one. It's a real difficult one. Just imagine if it's a player that's not involved in the squad, who's got a bad attitude, who's slow, he doesn't train hard, and then this happens.
You'd be pleased for the excuse, wouldn't you?
Yes. Put it on the other side. If you've got a player that's goal scorer, winning your games, 21-year-old, top Premier League clubs are looking at him, and an incident like this happens, come into training on the Monday morning, what do you do? Sack him, gross misconduct, or you've got an asset there that could be worth about £10 million. What do you do? What do you do?
It's very, very tough. Of course, the club left them out of the squad at the weekend and won the game. So perhaps if you're Koku, of course, hasn't had an easy start to life as manager anyway, you might just think, you know what, lads, you've betrayed my trust. You're not worth the trouble. If we can win without you, it's easier for me, both on and off the pitch, to just cut my losses.
Yeah, well, what you have to work out, Guy, is if it's classed as gross misconduct. Is drink driving gross misconduct?
Well, that's what they've been arrested for. They haven't been found guilty of it yet. If they are, I think there is probably an argument that any instance of breaking a law might be seen to be.
Yeah. I must say, I stand there, allegedly gross misconduct for drink driving. So, but that would probably go above the manager's head, and that would go to the chief exec and, of course, the owner. If he's got an asset that could be worth, with Lawrence, he's worth quite a lot of money, by the way, because he is a good player. Bennett does okay, but he's not in the same level as Lawrence. So where do you say that's gross misconduct? That's not. We've got to keep them. We've got to get them back fit. They've just lost a centre-back and a captain. Lawrence plays all the time. Bennett sometimes plays. They've lost Wilson from Liverpool on loan last year, Mason Mount and Tomori back to Chelsea. I think Koku has got a really tough job on his hands there, and even tougher now.
But St. Wayne is coming in January to save us all.
Oh, yeah, I've forgotten about Wayne Rooney just for a moment. Yeah, that'll be interesting, won't it, to see how that goes and where the club are by then. Of course, you've got championship games tomorrow night, got championship games on Wednesday night. Derby have a trip to Barnsley. I think it's significant. I think it's brilliant in some ways that Derby went out and, having had that tough start, produced a 3-2 win over a good Birmingham side at the weekend. I think a real show of sort of defiance in the face of adversity, whether or not it was, for the manager, if you like, for the fans. I don't know exactly what the players' motivations would have been, but great to see them not get distracted and all the rest of it by that nonsense off the pitch last week. And the scheduling has thrown up a bit of a gem tomorrow night. You wouldn't have I don't think you'd be grateful for it if you're either Stoke or the Huddersfield manager, but they are playing each other, the two winless sides in the Championship, the bottom two in the league, coming face to face. Nathan Jones, remember, the Stoke manager, has been under a lot of pressure this season, and he's been asked ahead of that game whether or not he'd consider walking away.
There's a group there that are talented, that can do something. If errors are stopped and you just have a normal game for once, we will win a normal game, and we'll win more normal games than we lose them. So, no, I don't want to do that.
Martin, have you ever walked away from a club?
Yes, I have, yeah. I needed to have a break after my 2.5 years at Brentford, which was, I don't regret. It was the right thing to do at the time. I was exhausted and drained of energy. And I've seen Nathan's interviews after the game the other night. I thought they played quite well the other night, to be fair to him. It wasn't one of those lacklustre, he's going to get the sack performances. I thought the players gave him everything they had. I think that club's still in transition after their relegation. And it just goes to show how quickly we're talking about Manchester United this afternoon and Arsenal and their demise from the challenging at the very top. And here you've got two clubs that have been in the Premier League with Stoke and Huddersfield that are now fighting for their lives to stay in the Championship. So it just shows how quick clubs can go. And, it's a big game. It's a big game for Nathan. If they don't win it and Huddersfield spoil it for them and take it, win the game, I think Nathan's going to find it quite difficult, I'd imagine. From what we're reading, it's going to be probably a decisive game.
As a manager, what drives you to walk away from a club? How do you get to that point?
Well, you don't sleep. The players have lost belief. You probably have a chat with the chief exec and he says, what do you reckon? And you say, well, give us a couple more games. Let's see what happens. Can we get a loan player in? Can we sign a player? And normally when they lose confidence in you, they don't let you sign anyone anyway, because, that ain't ever going to work. What makes you walk away? Can't see where the results are going to come from. Can't see the performance. Can't see where it's happening. The supporters have lost faith. The players then start to read it and see it and feel it. And the pressure gets too much for everybody. And more often than not, the chief exec and the owner then sort of says, well, that's it. Let's time to move on to somebody else. Half the time it don't work for the next person because you keep the same group of players.
Well, we always have faith in you here, Martin. Love Sport Drive. We always back you.
Is that a vote of confidence, Johnny?
Yeah, that is what we call the kiss of death. That said, if you want to bring in another presenter on loan or on a permanent basis, I am not having any of it.
This is Love Sport.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
All right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Mr. Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
We got lots to come here on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. We're going to be looking ahead to Manchester United versus Arsenal. Going to be joined by a Norwegian football expert talking Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He's been given Ed Woodward's public backing. Is that the kiss of death? Well, if Solskjaer does keep the faith of the club, has he got the quality to turn things around? Is it the case that if they give him the time, give him the patience, give him the backing, he is the right man? We'll also be asking the big question in Champions League Watch: can Leicester or West Ham gatecrash that party? Martin's backing Leicester. Of course he's backing West Ham. He rang me on Saturday just to let me know that that was exactly how he was feeling. We're also going to be talking about the sad decline of AC Milan. They lost again at the weekend, and we'll be hearing from Ewan Thomas too.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 5, the Chancellor has announced plans to increase the national living wage to £10.50 an hour. Sajid Javid's also said he'll bring the threshold down to 21. Meanwhile, Boris Johnson insists his personal life won't overshadow the Conservative Party conference.
Not at all. I think what the public want to hear is what we're doing to bring the country together and get on with improving their lives.
The start of the event in Manchester has been dominated by allegations the Prime Minister touched a female journalist's thigh without permission in 1999, which he denies. Two girls aged 14 and 16 have been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of a pensioner in Cambridgeshire. The man in his 80s died in Wisbech on Saturday after suffering a cardiac arrest. Opposition leaders have apparently agreed not to trigger a confidence vote in the government this week. They've been meeting in Westminster to continue their aim to stop a no-deal Brexit. Lib Dem leader Jo Swinson says they're worried about timing.
This week it is important that we don't go for a precipitous vote of no confidence motion. It's understood that if anything that would just increase the risk of no-deal Brexit and therefore play into Boris Johnson's hands.
The Duke of Sussex has paid his respects at a memorial for a British soldier, Matthew Talbot, who was killed in an anti-poaching patrol in Malawi. Prince Harry's laid a wreath in a special plaque commissioned by Guardsman Talbot's family. He's also highlighting the importance of conservation.
There shouldn't be any one person or a group of people focusing on conservation in the way that it's a global issue now. It's no longer confined to national parks. This affects every single one of us. I think we need to appreciate that we are the one problem, right? And we need to be able to fix it.
And in sports, FIFA have ordered Cardiff City to pay French club FC Nantes more than £5 million for the transfer of striker Emiliano Sala, who died in a plane crash in January. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Young, it's 8. And he scored 2 absolute beauties.
Man United might not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table, let him sign it, let him write whatever numbers he wants to put on there, give him what he's done now since he's come in, and let him sign the contract and go. Ollie's at the wheel, man, he's doing it, he's doing his thing. Man United are back.
I don't worry about what the press writes about me or Man United, and it's always been the same. You do have the headlines, and which is a great position to be in. We wouldn't want to be anywhere else. We wouldn't want to scramble the newspapers to see if there's written anything about us, because that's our rightful place.
Good evening. You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen till 7. We heard there from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, amongst others, because we're focusing in on tonight's big game. It's Manchester United versus Arsenal at Old Trafford. This is an institution. We're looking back on some of the great moments in this fixture in the past. But Martin, talking about the present, we heard Solskjaer using phrases like our rightful place there. Is that a problem for you? Is he too attached to the past? He's living in the Fergie years. He needs to get with the times.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Johnny. When you're talking about the history in the past, I just don't buy it. You are where you are because you deserve to be there. It's not because we've got a great history, we deserve to be at the top of the Premier League. You were great, but you're not now. What are you going to do about it? The great history is for a Sunday afternoon with your grandchildren. It ain't for now. Get real. Forget Sir Alex and recognise him. But when it comes to it and to the action, it's different. It's changed. It's moved forward. The model of football clubs at the top level is totally different. Move with the times and stop talking about it.
Do you think in a funny way Ferguson has had a negative influence on Ollie and on the situation at the club? Because he's obviously an incredible role model who will have had a big part in Solskjaer's footballing education. But equally, he's like a spectre over Old Trafford. He's still there. He's watching every week. When they're losing, what do the cameras do? They pan to Sir Alex Ferguson looking a little upset. It's not helpful, is it?
no, it's probably not helpful. But more importantly, they had a top guy working alongside Alex Ferguson called David Gill. And now he used to operate with agents and getting players in. And when Sir Alex identified players, David Gill got the deals done. There wasn't any messing about. Now, it seems, and I couldn't get my head around it in the summer, when Manchester United went on tour, I think, to China. I think Australia, went across, I can't hear you, Guy, across to Australia, and they never bought Maguire before going on the trip. They should have had all their squad in place before that trip, ready to go. And the players that didn't want to come in, could you imagine Sir Alex Ferguson begging players to sign new deals, persuading players to play for Manchester United? If they don't want to play, get them out. Sell them as quickly as you can. And he would not have been dictated to by the commercial sales of Paul Pogba's Twitter or Instagram account.
Instagram. The irony is that Ferguson did exactly that with Paul Pogba. Pogba, as a teenager, was giving it large to Fergie, saying, I should be starting in central midfield. I want however many thousand a week. And Fergie said, all right then, Paul, I know you're a good midfield player. I know you've got potential, but off you go. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as you say, a bit more patient. We're joined on the line by Lars Sivertsen, who's a Norwegian football expert. Good evening, Lars. Thank you for joining us. You've followed Ole's career very closely, both as a player and as a manager. What are you making of his whole demeanour at the moment, his body language, saying it wasn't necessary for Ed Woodward to back him in public last week? Is the pressure starting to get to him?
Listen, he knows he's under pressure. He's not an idiot. I mean, the situation isn't ideal the way it is. But I think he seems to be in a situation where, I mean, everyone would lose an awful lot of faith if they sacked him now. So I think for the immediate future, it would be hard to see United doing such a U-turn. But he's under pressure to turn results around. And you have to remember, for him, this is not just any job, you know, this is the job. This is the job he'll have dreamt of having since he ever thought, from the first moment he thought about ever becoming a coach or a manager. Like, this is the pinnacle for him. So I think he'll be much more worried about the fact that things haven't been going as well as he would have hoped than anything else. I mean, whatever you think of him, I mean, he will take this very, very personally, and there's no shortage of desire from him to get it right. So I think that's the bigger issue for him, really.
What I like about his comments after Ed Woodward said those things, I thought he stood up for himself really, really well and said, and put it back against Ed Woodward. You don't need to say that. Why are you saying that? It's not necessary. I like he's come out fighting like that.
Yeah, he does, and he is, whatever you do say about him, he is quite good at saying the right things in press conferences. I mean, that is certainly a gift he has. And he has a good ability to very often sort of diffuse slightly challenging situations by just finding the right thing to say. He's quite an accomplished diplomat, certainly with regards to the public. I guess with regards to the Woodward comment, he has to say something. And if he doesn't say that he backs him, then that looks a lot worse, and the media will jump on that as well. So it's a bit of a... I think at the end of the day, it's much more about what happens on the pitch than all of this stuff around it, to be honest. Although it does actually help us fill airtime and have things to write about, obviously. But I think what happens on the pitch is paramount, and that's where they need to see improvements. And I mean, and that is difficult for any number of reasons that we can talk about.
Do you think he's being backed enough by Woodward? He said in the summer he didn't want to sign a striker, even though he was trying to sign Mario Mandzukic. He's now saying he needs one, and he'll go back in as soon as January. We know Woodward is obsessed by resale value. Mandzukic is 33. If Ole goes to him in January and says, Mario Mandzukic is my man, do you think Woodward will go out and get him for him?
But I think I heard you were discussing the issue of player recruitment and the process there just before I came on. But this is the whole thing with United. I think it is really odd that you have a club that's right in the very top echelon in the world. I mean, according to the latest sort of Deloitte money list, I think they're had the third highest turnover in the world. And you can be in a situation where you're at the end of the transfer window and you think, oh no, we probably don't need strikers. And then, like, a few weeks later, they're like, oh, no, we need strikers after all, and we need to get one in January. Like, there needs to be a level of planning that's slightly better than this. I mean, come on. This is just not good enough. And obviously, if Solskjaer was arguing privately that actually we're fine for strikers with Masfro, Rachel and Greenwood, then I think he needs to take some of the blame for that. Because obviously with two guys who've really only played wide forward, I mean, they've not really been the focal point in the centre forwards or certainly not proven themselves in this position, and a 17-year-old. I mean, for a club of Man United's stature to go into the season with that as their strike force, I mean, that is very thin. I think everyone knew that, and everyone could predict that this would be an issue.
You obviously have followed Ollie's managerial career in Norway as well. I think he's given quite a hard time by British fans because they've only seen him at United and at Cardiff, where it didn't go very well. What kind of job did he do in his home nation? And on the most fundamental level, how highly do you rate him as a manager?
So he was quite successful at Molde, albeit with a decent squad to work with. And what he was very successful at was, in particular, getting younger players, young, promising players to come and play. He likes working with players who are confident, who are fast, who can take players on, who can make their own decisions with the ball. He was also in a very good environment in Molde. Molde is a really small town on the coast. There aren't too many temptations, if you know what I mean. It's a really good place for a young, ambitious player to develop for a couple of years before, going abroad, I think, as they all want to do. And Ola did a really good job getting those squads together. Tactically, he showed a bit of flexibility. He rotated his squad quite a lot, sometimes causing some bafflement amongst the local press, but often, to some success. And I think in Norway, probably his biggest strength, you'd have to say, was his man management. And I guess this is something I've always wondered a little bit about, is because when he walks into a dressing room of predominantly younger players in Norway, everyone will sit up and be quiet because, oh my God, it's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and we all grew up sort of practically worshipping this guy. And I've always wondered, can he possibly have that same effect in a dressing room outside of Norway and with players who maybe don't already hold him in that sort of regard? I mean, can his words have that kind of effect on, you mentioned Paul Pogba, and he's an easy target, but also other players in that dressing room, a famously tricky dressing room. That's one thing I've always wondered a little bit. And so if he doesn't have that automatic buy-in at his disposal, it's almost like he has to find sort of different tools that he can use. And I'm not saying that's something he can't do, but it's certainly a slightly different challenge for him.
Just finally, will his stock always be high in Norway? If he does a bad job here, it all goes pie-shaped. He gets sacked. He then gets another job, gets sacked there. Is he always going to be the hero of your nation?
Well, I can't really speak for all 5 million of us, but I think in general, I mean, his playing career is what it is. And as football is becoming an even more global sport, and everyone almost across the planet, and not everyone, but see, it's such a huge cultural thing, it's almost becoming bigger and bigger for us that we had a guy at Man United who was a heroic figure at Man United. For every year that goes by, that seems like an even bigger deal, because you have to remember when he was there, we had quite a lot of Norwegians in England back in those days, but now we don't, and we realise that that's not something we perhaps should have ever taken for granted. And I think his status is secure in that regard. And I also think, my impression is a lot of certain Norwegian observers, and certainly Norwegian Man United fans, are also acknowledging that, I mean, maybe Ole isn't the solution, but even if he isn't the solution, then he's certainly not the only problem. There's a lot of stuff going on at United and the way the club is led at the moment that's making it a very, very difficult job for whoever's in the top seat. So I don't think there's any sense that if this goes completely wrong, if the wheels come off it in the next couple of months, I don't think he'll tarnish his legacy in a too big a way. No, I don't think that at all.
Lars, great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Lars Sivertsen there, who is a Norwegian football expert and a big fan of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But Martin, one thing he was talking about there is how important it is for Ole and also for any manager to have control of the dressing room, not just as a coach, but as a person, to be respected, to be taken seriously, to be listened to. How significant is that when you're actually there doing the job, and how do you earn that respect?
Well, Johnny, once when I played, many, many years ago...
Surely not.
We had an international striker, a top player, get the manager's job. And on his first day, he has a bag of balls, over his right shoulder. In his left hand, he has a bag of bibs and discs. And he's got his 20 footballers in front of him. And all of a sudden, he's gone from being the player over to be the manager. And he came to his first training session, and there was an eerie silence.
Do you not know what to do?
No.
Not a clue?
No.
Couldn't even replicate the drills that someone else had done with him?
Done a good warm-up. But anyone could do the warm-up. Anyone.
Stretch.
Anyone could run round and do some stretching. Anyone could do that. So he left it all to his coach. As things went on, the coach took all the training. So it don't matter how good you were in the past, what you did in the past is totally and utterly irrelevant. When you go out there on that first day and you have your first meeting and how you conduct yourself and how you speak to people, how you address people, how you deal with the media, what messages you put out into your squad, the captain you pick, how you deal with the senior players, what you do with the younger players, and how you are as a person is key and vitally important. And we've seen with Brendan Rodgers never played, you know. He didn't play. He was at Reading when I was at Reading as a player. Nice, skillful little midfield player. Not the bravest, but good on the ball. What are you laughing at?
It's just the most Martin Allen thing I've ever heard. Good player, didn't kick people, but we'll move on.
No, I didn't say that. He didn't kick people, not the bravest. But he's turned into a fantastic manager. And if you'd imagined him when he went into Chelsea, when he went in there into their under-18s, when he left Reading, they'd have probably been thinking, who's this geezer? Who is he? Who's Brendan? Where you come from? Reading to Chelsea? Serious? Well, Brendan spent a lot of time out in Barcelona watching their training and seeing how they did it at I think it's called La Mesa, their academy. And he studied it, and he went backwards and forwards to Barcelona all the time. Everyone was wondering what he was doing over there. But then when you saw his team play, Chelsea under-18s, very soon he got promoted up to Chelsea under-21s. And then Mourinho was like the one that brought him up to the under-21s. So Brendan was also now watching Mourinho and doing what he was doing. So you have to earn it. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It doesn't matter what your credentials were and what a good player Ollie was at Manchester United. He is going to need to make a massive change at Old Trafford, at Manchester United, in the mindset of everybody. And I liked the fact that he stood up to Ed Woodward and said straight out, why did he need to make those comments? It's not necessary. That for Ed Woodward, or Fred Woodward as I call him now, he should have been shut up, get away and let the man do his job.
Fighting talk. Well, we'll have more on Brendan, not the bravest, Rodgers' Leicester City in just a moment.
I gave Kim Jong-un the upper hand, but only a tiny one.
Love sport.
Every day someone dies waiting for a transplant. From spring 2020, the law around organ donation in England is changing to allow more people to pass on more organs to save more lives. Unless you choose to opt out or in an excluded group, all adults will be considered as a possible organ donor when they die. Whatever your choice, make it clear to your family and closest friends to ensure your decision is honoured. To find out more, or for the choice to opt out, visit organdonation.nhs.uk. Pass it on.
Can you save money on your car insurance? Chris did, with a little help from a spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings.
I'm Chris from Leicestershire, a truck driver. I went on a spokesman's set, which was very straightforward and easy to use for an old git like myself, and saved over £300 on my car insurance.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, Please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
This is Love Sport.
Could we be hearing this at the King Power Stadium next year? Could we be hearing it at the London Stadium? No, I don't mean played through the tinny speakers on Martin Allen's phone. I mean through the sound system. Champions League football brought back to two of those great clubs. We're doing Champions League Watch. We're zooming in on who could break into that top four. And as things stand, Martin, Leicester City and West Ham both have. Leicester in third with 14 points. West Ham in fourth with 12 points. Can either of them do it?
Leicester for sure. Absolutely for sure, Leicester. With Vardy scoring the goals, he looks like he's had he's rejuvenated. Apparently he's lost some weight, hasn't he? I was told last week. And been really put through a tough fitness schedule with Brendan. And he looks like he's got energy, enthusiasm. He's leading the line. They've got goal scorers. They've got very good defence. Maguire's replacement, what was his name?
Soyuncu.
And both fullbacks, good players. It looks like a really good, young, mobile team that's got goals in it. And with West Ham, they're a little bit probably behind Leicester, a little bit behind, but their recruitment with players like Lanzini, Anderson, Yarmolenko, and the centre forward Haller. It looks to be that they can all score goals, even if they're not playing well. They've all got goals in them. And they could. I don't think they'll be in that top four, but to see them the other night, third place in the Premier League, God, my phone was buzzing everywhere.
Well, when we're talking about recruitment, let's zoom in on Leicester City, because a lot, very rightly, is being made of the brilliant coaching work that Brendan Rodgers is doing. But a big part of this is recruitment, and a lot of it is recruitment that was done before he joined the club. I've got their record of signings in front of me, and it is extraordinary. In the last few years, Danny Drinkwater, they brought in for £800,000. They sold him to Chelsea for $35 million after he'd won them a league title. Riyad Mahrez, they brought in for £450,000. Sold him to Manchester City for $65 million after he'd won them a Premier League. N'Golo Conte, they brought in for £7 million. They sold him to Chelsea for $35 million after he'd won them the Premier League. Harry Maguire, they signed for $12 million. They sold him for $85 million. But even with the players still at the club, Kasper Schmeichel cost them a measly $1.2 million. Jamie Vardy, the man who is set to become their record goal scorer, who's already fired them to a Premier League title, scoring in 14 consecutive league games, $1 million. And Didi, who's running that midfield, breaking up attack, scoring goals as well, $15 million. Patrick Maddison, the twinkle-toed number 10, $21 million. Ricardo Pereira, the fullback who scores goals, who Martin's so keen on, $19 million. Soyuncu, the centre-half, who looks a rock, $19 million. They've spent barely any money in Premier League terms, and they have created, Martin's quite right to say, a top four side.
Brendan signed Tielemans.
He did, 40 million.
Probably looked a little bit expensive at the time, but
I don't think so.
At the time it was, scores goals.
He does.
Wins games. And then the next one, I think, James Maddison.
21 mil.
Who signed him?
He was last year.
It was last season,
To be fair,
yeah.
Claude Puel signed him.
Okay, so he's another player that can score goals and win games and change matches. With those two plus Vardy, you've got game winners in your team.
And actually, no one's talking about Iosi Perez because he hasn't had a good start to life. He bungled a chance to score at the weekend, but he's a top player.
He's a £30 million player. They've got Kelechi Iheanacho on the bench. What was he, 25 million from Man City? There were eyebrows raised when City let him go, but surprise, surprise, maybe Pep Guardiola's been proved right on that one. But the point is that they've got talent in depth here. I looked at that squad, that team at the weekend, and I thought on that bench, they've got options there. If this game isn't going in their favour, they've got ways of turning it around. And they didn't even have James Maddison, who was missing through injury. It is really, really mightily impressive how they've done it. And yes, they had Steve Walsh, who has been credited with doing a lot of the good work there, especially in those formative years in the Premier League time that they've had, the Morrises and the Contes and players like that. But more recently, he's been at Everton. So what they've done is they've carried on that culture, if you like, that approach. And what do you know? It is yielding success. Who's had more success in the league in the last 6 years, Man United or Leicester City? Leicester City. And who's likely to finish higher this season?
Yeah.
Leicester City, let's be quite honest.
Well,
and Man United should be looking at Leicester City and hanging their heads in shame, shouldn't they? Anyone in charge of recruitment at Man United should be looking 100 miles or so south and saying, God, we are being embarrassed here by people operating on a fraction of the budget with a shard of the reputation that we've got, and they are absolutely making us look like fools.
Yes, absolutely. You can't argue with that. And also with Spurs, they haven't also spent big either.
No.
Compared to what Manchester United have spent, it's been absolutely nowhere near it. This year they bought Dombele, didn't they? For, was it
55 million,
65
60 million, yeah.
So that was a big buy, but that's the first time they've really pushed it out. But these clubs are so far behind Man City, who have really pushed the boundaries out, and the other clubs, they're nowhere near Man City. They're nowhere near Liverpool.
Liverpool are 5 points clear.
They're nowhere near. No, the clubs that are not in that Champions League,
right,
this group here, the next group down, they're nowhere near it. They're in a completely different gear. And when we going through clubs, Spurs, Arsenal, West Ham, Everton, Manchester United, well, you can't see Man United getting in there. I saw them play at West Ham last week. They are nowhere near it. They're absolutely nowhere near it.
Tell us about Chelsea, Martin. You were at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. What do you make of them?
Very, very good first half. Quick passing. At times it was pinball fast passing. Very, very good to watch. Weak on defending, corners, wide free kicks, set plays. They're not big, but they're young. They're on the way up. They're galvanised as a group. You can tell they enjoy playing. Mason Mount is a really good player in that number 10 role. But when they were winning soon after the penalty, they had a quiet spell when Stamford Bridge was a bit quiet as Brighton made a few passes and a couple of set plays went into Chelsea's box and they looked vulnerable, and Brighton hit the bar when it was 1-0 down. After that, they came out, they got ahead and they played some great football. This year, I don't think they'll be Champions League. This year, will they make top 6, pushing top 6? But next season, if they add a little bit more height, because both centre-backs are not dominant headers of the ball, and you've got to remember they're missing a guy called Rudiger. He is a key player, and they need him in the team to help them defend set plays.
Can't do it all, though, can he? He can't do it on his own.
No, not the only one, but you've got Christensen does okay in the air, but I wouldn't say he's a dominant header, a big dominant header of the ball, like, say, Dunk at Brighton. He's a difficulty looking after him. Tammy Abraham done well attacking a wide free kick and headed it when it went against the post, but defending like Drogba used to do for that fantastic Chelsea team. He used to stand on the 6-yard box, not mark anybody, and wherever the ball came in, Drogba used to go and attack it and head it clear 9 times out of 10.
I've never seen a player attack a football in the air like Didier Drogba.
And I don't think I've seen an attacker defend with his head in the box like Didier Drogba. It is an often underappreciated, forgotten part of that Chelsea team. I think you're right to point out how important Didier Drogba was in his own box.
Because John Terry was also not a main dominant header of the ball. He was more 5'11" and not 6'3", 6'4". So Drogba normally would be the main man to go and do the damage.
I used to love to hate watching Drogba. He always scored against Arsenal. He'd always clatter people. He'd always fall over whenever anyone went anywhere near him.
And he'd always score at least twice against
him. He was good. He was just so good. And it was the kind of goals he scored. He scored every kind of goal. I thought he was incredible.
And I was surprised because I wasn't sure about Tammy Abraham.
No, I agree.
He is a good player.
He's a proper player. And he will grow.
He's a good player.
And that aggression of attacking the ball and that confidence and that physicality will come as well. Because he's still a kid. He's, 21?
Yeah.
He will thicken out more. He'll get bigger. He's a talent. And I actually rate Chelsea this year. I think they're going to be closer to the top four than people think. I appreciate that's a risky shout, but for me, I could see them competing with Arsenal for the top four spot quite happily. I think they'll be in and around it. If Rudiger can come back, if they can sort that defence out, there are goals in that team and they are great to watch.
Love Sport.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men.
Cage.
Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're right.
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
When looking for the best possible deal for his car insurance, Jim went on aspokesmansaid.com and saved hundreds.
I'm Jim. I'm a radio presenter based in Glasgow. I couldn't believe how expensive the car insurance for our Citroen C4 Picasso was going to be from my existing insurer. I went on A Spokesman Said and saved an incredible £600. Just amazing.
Find quotes from over 100 leading insurance providers at aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
Mr. Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davies.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
I'd never be a vegetarian. I think that is a huge mistake. Mistake. So clever, so fun.
This is Love Sport.
You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen until 7. And Guy has all your latest sporting headlines and weather.
Yeah, top story this afternoon, Johnny, is that FIFA have ordered Cardiff City to pay French club FC Nantes £5.3 million for the transfer of Emiliano Sala. The Argentine striker was killed in a plane crash while travelling from France to Wales to join his new team. The Championship club had argued they were not liable for the full £15 million transfer sum because Salah was not officially their player when he died. West Ham have been dealt a major injury blow. We'll get Martin's thoughts on this. Maybe that's the Champions League hopes over after confirming that number one goalkeeper Lukas Fabianski will be out of action for at least 2 months. The Pole tore his hip muscle while playing in their 2-2 draw at Bournemouth on Saturday and was substituted in the 34th minute. Roberto Jimenez will replace Fabianski in the team, having signed for the club on a free transfer in May. And in rugby, Scotland have secured a big win to keep their hopes alive at the Rugby World Cup. They bounced back from an opening defeat against Ireland to ease past Samoa 34-0 in their second Pool A match in Japan. Gregor Townsend's side were awarded a late penalty try, meaning they secured a crucial bonus point. And their next game is against Russia a week on Wednesday. Pool A with Ireland and Japan also, and of course, wide open now. And your London weather not looking too great, I'm afraid. Next 24 hours or so could be a fair few showers around this evening. Lows of 14 or 15 degrees and plenty more rain around tomorrow. Should be a dryish start, but plenty of showers throughout the afternoon. Highs of 17 degrees. That's the latest on Love Sport Drive.
Thanks, Guy. Now, Martin, I grew up watching Serie A, the Italian league, and I grew up watching AC Milan absolutely dominate it. That great team of the mid-noughties. You had Shevchenko and Crespo up front scoring goals. You had Kaká, at one point literally the greatest player in the world, running at sides, making things happen from that number 10 role. You had Seedorf and Pirlo sitting deeper. You had Maldini and Nesta at the back. It was one of the most consistent, one of the most exciting footballing sides I've ever seen. And back then, about 15 years ago, it seemed completely unthinkable that Milan wouldn't always be at the very top, not just of the Italian Football League, but the European footballing pyramid overall. Well, fast forward to 2019, couldn't be further from the truth. AC Milan 16th in the table, 6 points from 6 games, with new manager Marco Giampaolo, formerly of Sampdoria. He is already under pressure of being sacked. It's all going wrong, and we're hearing rumours today that the club could even have contacted former striker Andrei Shevchenko to come in and manage the club. We're joined on the line now by Sheridan Bird, who's an Italian football expert. Good evening, Sheridan. Thank you for joining us. We're talking a lot about United and Arsenal today, two former heavyweights of English football who's just slipped slightly off their perch. Milan have fallen off it completely. How did this happen?
It basically dates back to around 2011, 2012 when they won the league, which was a bit of a shock under Max Allegri, and they still had superstar players. And then basically the story goes that the ex-president, Silvio Berlusconi's family, just sort of said to him softly in his ear, we're spending a lot of money on this football team. It's a bit of fun and it's a good project, but, let's start spending a bit less. And they started doing that. They sold Thiago Silva and Zlatan Ibrahimovic to Paris Saint-Germain, and various other superstars retired. Then Berlusconi sold, and basically they haven't had really good players for the last 5 or 6 years, and that is the bottom line. If you haven't got good or decent or superstar players on the pitch and the budget's not there to get them in, you will see a drop-off.
And how about Ivan Gazidis from Arsenal? I think he took up a role there, didn't he? How much has he had to play in it?
He's been there for just over a year now, and he's supposedly been working with the Americans Elliott, a trust fund, or rather an American capitalist whiz fund group, and they've been, I think, trying to buy younger players at slightly lower cost to try and build something for the future. So on paper, what they have done in the last sort of 6 years has made sense, but unfortunately, they don't play on paper; they play on grass.
Very, very similar to the impact that Gazidis had at Arsenal, of course. We're hearing reports in the Daily Mail today that Andrei Shevchenko could have been contacted to take the managerial role at AC Milan. Is there any truth in that?
Well, I mean, it's definitely, while Berlusconi was there, he always said that he would like to see Shevchenko one day coaching there. There have been rumours today, yeah, indeed, that it could be Shevchenko and ex-Milan defender Tassotti together. Shevchenko is currently doing a good job, I think, with limited resources as coach of Ukraine. A few other names have been linked as well. Max Allegri, one of them. Could he be making a comeback at Milan? Rudi Garcia, who was previously coach of Roma. And even Spalletti, Luciano Spalletti, who was coaching Inter last year. Will he be tempted across the city, as it were, to the big rivals? There are certainly names in the frame, and some of them are quite big. But you wonder if they would touch a job like this the way it is at the moment.
Well, in terms of the former managers, they've already tried Inzaghi, they've tried Seedorf, they've tried Gattuso. They were all relative car crashes. Why would it be different with Shevchenko?
Well, exactly. There's no evidence to prove otherwise. They've, they've basically burnt through some real club legends that you've just named there, and it's a shame to see. They also tried not club legends, but Sinisa Mihajlovic, who is a legend of Italian football, and his team was solid but quite grey and quite predictable. And you just have to ask yourselves, I mean, even to the level of not being in the game or not being a professional player or coach, like a lot of us in the press are, we can still see that it's the players. Because if several coaches have come in over the last 6-7 years and the team still isn't working, maybe the problem is not just the man in the dugout.
What is the situation with Marco Giampaolo? He came in having previously managed Sampdoria. Is he still highly rated? Has he got a chance to save his job?
Well, people are saying that he'll have one more match, which is at the weekend. It's away to Genoa, which they're actually having a nightmare themselves, Genoa. So he's got. Some are saying that he'll be given this weekend until this weekend. Others are saying that he might not even get that because some of his staunchest supporters in the boardroom were so concerned about yesterday's performance at home to Fiorentina, because I think it's a case of when a team loses a lot, a new team with a new coach and young players, when they keep losing but there's signs of something growing and there's signs of a strategy, or the players are looking hungry and they're giving everything, I think people, fans and directors can sort of accept that, but you really aren't getting that with Milan. So they've lost 4 out of 6 matches in the league this season, but they haven't even looked like they're clicking, and I think that's what the most worrying thing is.
And does any of the criticism and the doubt about the manager, has any of that been deflected over and back to the hierarchy that, as you said a minute ago, they wanted young players perhaps with a resale value to develop, to develop? Where's their philosophy? If you're not going to win games, you're going to give these players a chance. You've got to give the manager a chance, surely.
Yeah, you have. I mean, and to answer your first question, it's true that I think now the people are starting to question Paolo Maldini and Zvonimir Boban, ex-club legends, now on the pitch, now in the boardroom, sort of the link between the American owners and the squad. And people are starting to think, well, what's Maldini done? What has Boban done? And Maldini has come out and said, Gianpaolo is my man. We selected him and we stand by him. But the whole club is under criticism. I mean, it's not always the best barometer for sensible ideas. But Twitter yesterday, a lot of, quite intelligent followers of Milan and journalists in Italy were saying that everything is wrong. It's not just the team, it's the directors and the manager and the owners. So it's deep-rooted, unfortunately. And even super legend Paolo Maldini is starting to come under some pressure.
And just finally, Serie A actually looking very exciting so far this year. Juve, for once, not at the top of the table. Could this be the year that Inter finally take the Scudetto off them?
Well, I mean, I really hope from a neutral point of view it will go down to the wire. Inter have, in contrast, which makes it worse for AC Milan, Inter have won 6 out of 6. So, that really is shoving it down the throat of their city neighbours. Inter are looking impressive, although Juventus, there's signs that Maurizio Sarri's philosophy is starting to take hold, and they're not going to let go of the Scudetto without a real tussle. In fact, they play at the weekend on Sunday night, so whoever wins that, I don't think will decide the Scudetto. After all, it's only October. It will be October. But I hope that we'll have a match that will go down to sort of the last 3 or 4 matches next spring, because it's about time. We haven't had one of those in Italy for a while.
Sheridan, great to speak to you as ever. Thank you for your time. Sheridan Bird there, who is an Italian football expert. Martin, is it a shame to see so many great clubs kind of lying dormant at the moment?
Well, it can happen so quickly, Johnny. It can happen so quick. Manchester United, look what's happened to them over the last few years with poor recruitment. It can happen so quick. Huddersfield supporters, and people may be thinking, Huddersfield, Premier League last year, 2 years in the Premier League. They haven't won many games. They're near the bottom, and they play tomorrow night against Stoke.
That's
they
right.
are bottom, are they, Huddersfield?
Huddersfield propping it up, yeah.
Yeah, and they could be going down to the Division 1 from being in the Premier League last year. How quick has that happened? Poor recruitment, poor management selections. So it can happen to any of your clubs, and we're seeing the same now with Manchester United. If they lose tonight, there's going to be a tricky few days coming up to the weekend. Who do they play the weekend?
Man United.
Yeah.
Can't think off the top of my head, actually. Need to check that.
So we'll check that out. But all of a sudden, this could get into a...
Well, if we're already calling it a crisis, which some people have already, 8 points from 6 games, 8 points from 7 games, is, over the course of a season, relegation form.
Yeah.
Really, just only slightly above a point a game. And I wonder if you at home were thinking the same as I was when we were speaking to Sheridan there, when he's talking about how managers were slightly damned if they did, damned if they didn't at AC Milan at the moment. And the comparison that I thought straight away was Manchester United. And the comparison goes on. AC Milan most recently won their league title in 2012, United in 2013. These were clubs that until pretty recently, in terms of football context and history, and even now their names resonate. If you go to
Champions League
Vietnam or Suriname or anywhere in the world, if you name 10 football teams, those two would be in the ones, maybe in the top 5 that would get recognition. But it doesn't matter. The point is that football now is so global. There's so much to it. There's the scouting, the strength and conditioning, the psychology side of it, that if you don't have all of that right, it doesn't matter whether you won the Champions League 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. The time doesn't wait for you. Football doesn't wait for you. And if Leicester have a better recruiting department than you, they're going to overtake you. And likewise over in Italy, there's countless teams. Atalanta, look at them in the Champions League places again. It'll catch up with you.
But in a sense, Guy, it does matter. And that reputation, that name, that fact that it causes the sharp intake of breath is always significant. We've talked a lot in the last 18 months about the potential introduction of a European Super League. Now, that was going to be, nominally the 15 or so best, in inverted commas, clubs in Europe. Who was getting talked about? It's not the Leicesters, it's not the people breaking in, it's not the Tottenham Hotspurs. Milan are still in there, Manchester United are still in there, Arsenal are still in there, because that clout does stay.
Hasn't happened, has it? And the latest I heard on that was that it was unlikely to. And you know what? Even if it does, who's to say that those teams actually will get in there? And I know that that's something that we don't know. It's very much an uncertainty. But the point is that, while you may be able to dine out on a reputation for a little while, 4 5 years, maybe 10 years, it will not last forever. And if AC Milan, it sounds ridiculous, but they're a point above the relegation place. If they get relegated, that allure goes pretty quickly, let me tell you that. And I know that's not the same possibility for Man United.
Why is it not the same possibility?
Well, not this season. I don't think United are getting relegated. They're better than Watford, Brighton and Newcastle, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's not a definite no-no. It's not an absolute no-no. They're poor. They're poor. They've got no centre forward. Both their centre forwards, where are they going to score the goals? A 17-year-old?
2 and 2.
Come on. Can't happen. So what about if they get a bad run of results now? What's going to happen?
Well, people start talking about relegation.
Norwich City have got a better centre forward than a guy called Pukey.
Well, do you remember Neil Custis, the football writer covering The Sun?
Come on.
Came on last week, said Burnley will finish by Man United.
They will.
You
Much
think?
better than them. Much better.
But it's so hard to tell what's going to happen to United. I mean, if they sack...
Why?
Because if they sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, we've got no way of knowing who'll come in, what that team will look like after January if they panic, the kind of manager bounce they might get. Anything could happen to United this season, don't you think?
Well, they're mid-table, surely. Wolves are better than them.
Martin Allen. Wolves are in the bottom half. Martin Allen
Wolves are better than
is
them.
having none of it.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
Every day someone dies waiting for a transplant. From spring 2020, the law around organ donation in England is changing to allow more people to pass on more organs to save more lives. Unless you choose to opt out or in an excluded group, all adults will be considered as a possible organ donor when they die. Whatever your choice, make it clear to your family and closest friends to ensure your decision is honoured. To find out more, or for the choice to opt out, visit organdonation.nhs.uk. Pass it on.
This is Lionel, another very happy person who saved themselves money at a spokesmansaid.com.
Hi, I'm Lionel from Peacehaven. I took note of what the spokesman said and I saved £484 per year on my energy, and I recommend everybody does the same.
A spokesmansaid.com. Getting real people, real savings. Compare, switch and save with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes. This is Love Sport.
Dina Asher-Smith made history with her silver medal in the 100 metres at the World Championships last night. And Love Sport Drive's very own Ewan Thomas was there to see it in Doha. I caught up with him earlier and spoke to him about Dina and the almost empty stadium. I started by asking him if she would have any sense of regret at missing out on gold.
Well, to be honest with you, Johnny, the way she's been the last couple of years, she is a world beater. She's so ambitious. She wants to be number one. But I think when she reflects this morning and she thinks, you know what, I've smashed the British record. I've got my first global medal. I think it's the first medal in 36 years for a female athlete in the sprint events. She should be delighted. She was beaten by such a world-class athlete. I really think in sport, you can only control what you do. You can't control your opponents. And if you step off the track and you've run a personal best and you've still been beaten, you can't do any better than that. And I think the nation must be very proud of her because, you know, tough conditions out here. She's got through the rounds and she was superb. And, of course, she runs in the 200 metres this evening, getting through the qualification rounds. And I'm tipping her for gold. I think she will win the 200.
That's the big one for her, isn't it? I know she's had a fairly extraordinary route to the top. Tell us a bit about that. Where's she come from?
Well, I remember hearing about her in London 2012 because she was one of the kit carriers. She was one of the young athletes who was put forward as a potential good athlete, but someone who could soak up the atmosphere of an Olympics. So she was the one who was standing behind the blocks when the athletes take their clothes off, get into their athletics kit, their shorts and vests, and takes the basket to meet the athletes at the finish line and say, there you are, Mr. Bolt, here's your clothes, here's your tracksuit, well done. And she was obviously just caught in a massive emotion of, wow, this is the Olympics. And then within 4 years, she's the British record holder. 4 years after London 2012, she was our best sprinter. And over the last few seasons, she's gone from being very good to world class. And we saw that last night. What a performance.
Yeah, she is incredible. A big part of what inspired her at London 2012, beyond just the brilliance of the athletes, will have been the event, the occasion, the atmosphere. Are there going to have been local people inspired in Doha? Because we've seen a lot of photos in the press and on social media that seem to show a fairly empty stadium.
Yeah, it was quite unfortunate. I think by the time they did the lap of honour, a lot of people had gone. And I think one of the problems out here is a lot of the spectators who come here, they have certain curfews where they have to be back in their homes by. So clearly the crowds haven't been as busy as we would have liked out here. But I've got to say, for some of the events, the noise inside the stadium has been good. So, okay, there is a lack of spectators, but the ones who are there are really making a noise. And I think for Dina, at the end of the day, it's all about getting that global medal. Yes, of course, you'd rather run in front of a 60,000 sellout crowd, but it doesn't matter. You've still got to beat who's there, and I think when she looks back, she'll think this has been an amazing championships for her. And as I said, it's not over yet. I spoke to a coach afterwards, a coach John and a mum Julie, and they both were delighted, but they said, listen, it's only half done. 50% of her work is done. They were really, I don't know, very professional in their approach. It was almost like they were celebrating she had that medal. But Coach John was really very much, it's not over yet. You wait to the 200 metres. So I'm expecting something special.
And beyond just the 200 metres, she's got her eye on Tokyo in 2020 as well. Are we going to be looking at a potential Olympic medalist here as well?
100%. I'd say probably champion. Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, the Jamaican who won the race last night. She's not as young as Dina, very experienced athlete. But I've just got a feeling if Dina can keep injury-free and have another good winter behind her, she's only naturally going to get stronger and faster. So we definitely haven't seen the best of Dina Asher-Smith yet.
Just finally, mate, I've got to ask you, I've been enjoying your Instagram stories where you have been roasting your inner ginger struggling along. What is the temperature like there? What's it like inside and outside as well for those marathon runners?
Well, Johnny, the weirdest thing is everywhere you go is state-of-the-art air conditioned. So your room's 16 degrees and you go outside and it's like 120. And all of a sudden, it's just a change of heat. It's okay for the athletes because inside the stadium they keep the temperature to 25 degrees. But as you said, for the marathon and the 50k walkers. That's why those races are taking place so late. They start at midnight. It's obviously very hot, very humid. It's not ideal. Some African nations will like these conditions, but some Europeans, especially pasty ones like me, will be struggling in the heat. But you've got to say it's the same for everyone, and all the athletes would have been here for a number of weeks to acclimatise and to get used to it. But yeah, it's hot. Look, at the end of the day, we're in a desert. It's going to be hot.
Ewan, great to catch up with you. Thanks for your time. Hopefully we'll catch you.
I miss you, Johnny, by the way. I miss you all there, so I can't wait to get back.
We miss you too, darling. We'll see you very shortly, and hopefully we'll chat tomorrow after the 200 metres. Thanks again. Ewan Thomas there, former Olympic World Championship great, giving his take on Dina Asher-Smith. Great to catch up with Ewan earlier, but hearing from him there, it gave Martin Allen a chance to take Guy Watts to chance, because Martin is saying, you have not got a prayer tonight. Manchester United, in Martin's view, are going to get crucified by Arsenal. Guy Watts, who's a big United man, is saying, hang on a minute, there are reasons to be hopeful here.
Well, yeah, first of all, team news for tonight. Rashford and Pogba apparently at the pre-match meal at the hotel earlier. As Martin said to me himself, you wouldn't be there if you're not going to play some part in the game. So Rashford coming off the bench, Pogba to start, happy days, United to win. No?
No, I think Rashford will start. They'll put him straight in.
Throw him in.
If he's fit at the moment, manager has got to get his best players out there. And he might have to just sort of give him a pat on the back and say, I need you. You got to get out and do your stuff. Pogba, there's a report this morning in the newspapers that he has rallied round the players and said, come on, we need to get better. That is the most positive thing I've read about Manchester United. Do I believe
I'm
it?
meant to be being positive.
It's a big question mark against it, but if it's true, it's the best thing that could happen for Ollie, to hope he saves his job and give him a good chance of getting points on the board, because without him, they're not as good, are they? Let's be honest.
How about this? We saw a little preview of the Sky Studio for later, Monday Night Football. Of course, Roy Keane sitting there. I'm thinking it's coming up to October, November sort of time. Hot time for managers out of work. Roy Keane and Jose Mourinho to get managerial jobs and to get off the back of Man United. I love sitting and watching them. I think it's absolutely great TV. I listen to every word they say. I hang on every word they say. But I don't think it helps Man United having them, you know, literally creating headlines for the newspapers, for the websites and all the rest of it. That's got to be a reason to be cheerful, isn't it? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would breathe a sigh of relief if Jose Mourinho takes over at Real Madrid.
Yeah, that would get him out of the way. With Roy,
he's not getting a managerial job, is he?
No, Roy's found his place, and he's got a nice little niche number there, and I think it's very entertaining, to be honest.
He is, yeah.
I do enjoy watching him play, listen to him do his bit. Would Ollie be bothered and worried by all that? I hope not. I hope that doesn't come into his mindset. They know they're there. Ollie's problem is he's not got enough good players. It'll help when Luke Shaw is fit, and I'm not sure if he's fit tonight. You might know better on that.
I'm not expecting him to be, no.
But with Ashley Young, who's done well at West Ham, but he's not an attacking left-back with pace, energy.
He's not Kieran Tierney, is he?
No, he's not. No, you'd have Tierney over Ashley Young. Yeah, you'd think, well, why didn't someone buy it? For a left-back, I thought he was really good value. Played in the Champions League for Celtic.
20 million quid, that's a bargain these days.
Bargain, yes.
Unless you're buying a 12-year-old or a 35-year-old, or they've proven to be absolutely useless, 20 million quid's a snip, let's be honest.
Peanuts have always said that.
Or Manchester United of old, you just go and buy Chilwell from Leicester City, who is the best left-back in our country at the moment.
You're right, Martin, but it's going to cost you 70 million quid.
Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
AsSpokesmanSaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit AsSpokesmanSaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times and The Sun. at spokesmansaid.com. If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Mr. Davis, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
We got a cracking hour coming up for you on Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. We're going to be talking to Matt Candela from Le Grove, getting a take from the Arsenal point of view on the United versus Arsenal game tonight. People expecting Emery's men to go to Old Trafford and get a result for the first time since 2006. We're asking, what does it mean for each club if that happens? And if Solskjaer loses, should he go? Get in touch, 0208 70 20 558. Before that, though, it's time for the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 6. The Chancellor has announced plans to increase the national living wage by more than £2 an hour. Sajid Javid says it'll go up to £10.50 and the age threshold will drop to 21. Our economics editor Ed Conway is at the Tory party conference in Manchester, where Mr Javid revealed the details.
Around 1 in 4 workers in the UK will have their wages effectively decided by Whitehall, by central government, rather than by their employers. So this is a very big shift indeed. The key thing, of course, is that it's employers who end up paying it rather than the government.
Labour has described the announcement as pathetic. Boris Johnson has flatly denied touching a female journalist's thigh at a media lunch in 1999. Charlotte Edwards has defended herself on Twitter, saying she clearly has a better memory than the PM. 2 girls aged 14 and 16 had been arrested on suspicion of murder following the death of a pensioner in Cambridgeshire. The man in his 80s died in Wisbech on Saturday after suffering a cardiac arrest. A man's been convicted of murdering his ex-girlfriend before burying her in her garden in southwest London. The 32-year-old fled the country after strangling his victim in Kew in March. Sport and Scotland boss Gregor Townsend says his team answered their critics after they secured their first victory of the Rugby Union World Cup. They bounced back from an opening defeat against Ireland to ease past Samoa 34-0 in their second Pool A match in Japan. Townsend praised the performance from his under-pressure players.
That was a true reflection of who we are and what we're capable of and what playing for Scotland means. That was a tough challenge that they had to rise up and face, knowing that if we underperformed tonight, we were out of the World Cup. So to see the effort, the togetherness was excellent.
And Stranger Things has been renewed for a 4th series by Netflix. The 3rd season of the sci-fi horror drama which stars Millie Bobby Brown was released earlier this year. That's the latest. I'm Andy Hayes.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Here goes Van Nistelrooy. The noise says it all. The celebrations say it all. Manchester United lead Arsenal by 1-0. Young, it's 8. And he scored 2 absolute beauties. Manchester United showed absolutely no mercy.
Well, if you're an Arsenal fan, that was a painful minute of radio. I can only apologise. You're listening to Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You with me, Johnny Burrow, the wonderful Guy Watts, and the equally wonderful special guest, the chilly, it looks like, Martin Allen, with you till 7. We heard various clips then. Van Nistelrooy punishing Arsenal as he loved to. Ashley Young in that 8-2 where he was so superb. Of course, it's Arsenal versus Manchester United tonight at Old Trafford, a place where the Gunners haven't won since 2006. Martin, why has it been such an unhappy hunting ground for them?
Well, for Arsenal at Old Trafford? They just haven't been good enough, have they? They haven't been good enough since those fantastic teams that they put together. We've just seen their squads play good football, but never really looked like threatening them. I think tonight they would be favourites to win this game, wouldn't they?
Well, everyone is saying that, and I think it's in precisely those kind of contexts that Arsenal conspire to not win. I think in a scenario where United are struggling with injury, everyone's saying this is a chance for Emery to go and get a big scalp. We won't. That said, Arsenal impressed me against United at home last season. And the big question, given the last time we won at Old Trafford was 2006, is where it's gone wrong for the club after that, since then. Because it's not just that Arsenal haven't won at Old Trafford since 2006. They haven't won a league since 2006. They haven't been particularly successful in the Champions League. They've won FA Cups, fine, but the success has not been on the level it was in the late 90s and early noughties. What changed?
I'm not sure what changed, to be honest. Probably the fact that Ivan Gazidis took over from the role that David Dein had. I think losing him at that key time was a big moment for Arsene Wenger and for Arsenal Football Club. Of course, the move to the new stadium was an expensive move. So we all know about that one. But Arsene Wenger kept him in there, didn't he, in the Champions League? How many years running did he do that?
Over 15. I mean, that was an extraordinary job.
Yeah, that's it. And a lot of people moaned about that, didn't they? Like the supporter on the train the other night, on the way home from watching Arsenal beat Notts Forest, a supporter on the train said he was lucky, that goal. He was lucky. And that was a goal that Martinelli scored for a brilliant header from a great ball from Callum Chambers, side foot volley from just inside the 18-yard box on his right foot, brilliant side foot volley, and he said it was lucky. And I thought, are you serious?
Well, this is the thing, and on that front, you're spot on with the Wenger example. Arsenal fans and fans of other clubs simply do not realise or fail to recognise how extraordinary it was to get fourth consistently on that kind of budget. People were laughing at Arsenal and going, oh, Arsenal always finish fourth. If there were only 3 teams in the league, Arsenal will finish fourth. Ha, ha, ha. Fine, we weren't challenging at the top end of the Premier League, but actually in practice, getting that 4th place was incredible. I think there are lots of things people are going to pinpoint, and there are lots of obvious examples. The biggest is the Emirates move, the financial constraints that came with it. There are others, Fabregas going, Ashley Cole being allowed to leave. But I think on a more fundamental and more straightforward level, it was simply that there were key positions in the team where star men were not replaced. You lose Vieira, you lose that combative central midfielder. Who have Arsenal had since? They've not had one on that level.
Now. Granit Xhaka.
Oh, yeah, all right. Good one. You're on the wind-up. You lose Sol Campbell. You lose
He's your captain. He's your leader going into Old Trafford. Imagine him in the tunnel tonight squaring up.
Yeah,
Granit.
Quite. And then you lose your centre-halves. You lose Sol Campbell. You lose Tony Adams, who is the world-class centre-half Arsenal have had since. If you don't replace...
Mustafi!
If you don't replace the spine of your team, Martin Allen, you're going to struggle. We are joined on the line by Matt Candela, who is of Le Grove, a prominent Arsenal blog. Good evening, Matt. Thanks for joining us. What one memory do you most associate with United versus Arsenal?
Great to talk to you. My first abiding memory is my first away trip to Old Trafford in 1998. And it was when Arsenal went on that incredible run at the end of the season. But we didn't really quite know if we were going to do it or if we were really good enough to win the league. And then Mark Overmars popped up, flick on by Anelka, slotted it through, and suddenly it was all a reality. So incredible memory there from 98, which feels very long ago now.
Well, it is very long ago, and if I was being ungenerous, I'd suggest that 2006 is also quite a long time ago. Why have Arsenal struggled at Manchester United for so long, and can that change tonight?
I think it's a really interesting question. I think that we almost have an inferiority complex when it comes to Manchester United. And there were those years, those early Wenger years, when we were able to match them toe for toe. But even when we were the better team in those years, it sometimes felt like they got the advantage over us. But yeah, we've sort of carried on that inferiority complex and never been quite able to shake something off, because I was reading this morning, it's going to be this is our chance to absolutely wipe the floor with them. And it just sounds very, very familiar. I've been hearing exactly that every single year for about the last 5 years, and it never seems to happen. So hopefully something can change today.
Is the Rat going to be involved tonight?
Is the who, sorry?
The Rat.
Who's the Rat?
Mesut Ozil.
He's not. And there is something really weird going on with Mesut Ozil, because I personally don't understand why you wouldn't have him on the bench today, because if you need something and you're a goal down and you're 20 minutes to go, I would much rather have him coming on. And after all, let's not forget, he is now one of our esteemed 5 captains. So it seems bizarre that, that we're going to not take advantage of those incredible leadership skills that he possesses.
Did you see him in the game last week against Notts Forest?
I did catch a bit of it. He was not bad. I think he's in a really, really strange situation. And look, we all know that Mesut Ozil has got many flaws. But the reality is, we are talking about potentially starting an 18-year-old Saka in a front three. And I'm not averse to that idea, and I think we could do with a bit of fearlessness. But if you're telling me that Mesut Ozil on the bench would not be a good option, then I'm sort of struggling to see why not.
And what about the fact that he'd be sulking and doesn't want to be there, and he's got an attitude? And when he didn't get a pass last week, he looked at his boots like he was a little child who'd had his sweets taken off of him. And 30 seconds later, the manager substituted him and didn't shake his hand and just told him to get out. As a captain, I can't see going into Old Trafford. You surely will need every player 110% right for Arsenal to beat them. And when I say right, it means 100% committed to the shirt and the badge. Do you know what I'm saying by that?
I do, and I absolutely agree that that's the kind of team that we need to put out today. And I think, we need to pick a team with that in mind. There's been talk of people like Willock, people who don't stop running, and I think that
good player, isn't he?
He looks like a really, really top player. So, we're going to absolutely have to build the team with players like that tonight. My only point on the Ozil thing was keep him on the bench. I'm not saying start him. I would never suggest starting him away from home, really. But
that is incredible in itself, Matt. I mean, you're right that you wouldn't, but he is Arsenal's biggest star name. He's Arsenal's biggest earner on 350 grand a week. And we're all talking, rightly, like it's self-evident that you wouldn't risk him in a big game. It's farcical.
It is farcical, but I mean, who do you put the blame for that on? I mean, there's one person you have to put the blame squarely on,
Mesut
and
Ozil.
that's Ivan Gazidis, for offering him such an insane package. He recognised there was an opportunity to get an insane amount of money, and the club was stupid enough to give it to him when anyone could have told you that it was a terrible idea. And now we're stuck in this terrible situation. Mesut Ozil has not suddenly metamorphosized from one player into another. He is a certain type of player, and football has moved on. And I think that this sort of number 10 who can float around and wait for the ball to be passed to him is just not part of the modern dynamics of football. And he has just been phased out by progress, unfortunately. And yes, there are certain things that he could do better. But the reality is the manager has really made no real attempt to integrate him or involve him in the team. And Mesut Ozil seems relatively happy to do not much. So we're in this sort of stalemate until hopefully we can ship him off to the MLS at the end of the season.
Yeah, do you think they might be able to ship him off to on loan somewhere else? Does he want to leave North London? He seems to have I don't think he has a nice life in North London, because that must be a bit scary. It might be the time for him to get abroad and go and play somewhere else and get some games under his belt, because he clearly cannot be happy. He cannot be happy.
Wow, and it's bizarre that he is not making more noise, and I guess we can only thank him for that in some ways. But yeah, it's a complete mess of a situation, and I think it would be the only situation where we could put him out on loan, pay half his wages, and still be paying nearly $200,000 a week. So it's those wages that are so ridiculous, and I'm sure there's been no shortage of PEEP clubs in maybe the US and maybe China potentially sniffing around. But the wages are just such an obstacle, because why would he go? I mean, he's picking up such a colossal amount of money for basically doing nothing.
Yeah, but they could loan him, couldn't they?
No, it's a good point.
But they still have to pay a ton of his wages.
Well, look at what's happened with United and Alexis Sanchez. Matt, it's a very good point. Just finally, if Arsenal don't win tonight, is Unai Emery going to be under pressure?
I think he's already under pressure, and I think that a win will delay things. I think the issue with Unai Emery is that we haven't really seen any discernible style of play emerge, and we're now into the second season. And the first season was sort of going okay, and then we saw this cataclysmic collapse at the end of the season. And we're hearing lots of noises emanating from the camp that not all is well. And we really just need to see what this Emery era is supposed to look like. We're all just desperate for some progress. And unfortunately, every bit of anyone who sort of supports Emery is basically caveating it by the fact that other people are doing worse than us. Oh, we'll look at Tottenham. Oh, we'll look at Chelsea. Oh, we'll look at United. Those are the only reasons to justify what is happening with Unai Emery at the moment. And he's been very fortunate to have those things happening to those clubs. So I don't think the narrative is going to go away. And I fear for him, because he's really handled this Xhaka captaincy stuff really, really badly. And I fear that could be they could look back on that and go, that was the end of Emery.
Yeah, a bit of a botched job. Matt, great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Matt Candela there from the Le Grove blog, prominent Arsenal blog there, giving his take on tonight's game. Certainly an important one for Unai Emery. I'm not sure that if he does lose his job, it'll come down to Granit Xhaka and the captaincy. But Martin, another example of yet another Arsenal fan who can't see what Unai is trying to do.
This is Love Sport.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. Brexit will bring changes that affect businesses in many ways, particularly if you buy from EU suppliers, sell to EU customers, provide services to EU clients, and receive customer data from other businesses in the EU. Businesses need to prepare. Find out how at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
An actor, a journalist, and a comedian walk into a bar, and they're all whining about Donald Trump.
Love Sport.
Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive, where we have got serious fallout from the weekend's F1 action, Guy.
That's right, Johnny, we do. And I'm pleased to say that we had Lawrence Barretto on the Love Sport Breakfast Show this morning. He is a senior writer for Formula1.com. The story, in short, is that Sebastian Vettel overtook his teammate, Charles Leclerc, on the opening corner of yesterday's Russian Grand Prix. And it was anticipated that he would, because you get a really good tow, you get a really good slipstream on this track going into the first bend. And so he was told in advance that if he did that, he had to give the place back to Charles Leclerc, who, of course, been brilliant in the second half of the season, comfortably outscored his rival, a teammate, of course, Sebastian Vettel. And what did Sebastian Vettel do? He overtook him and refused to give the place back. Now, something of the crisis was averted because Sebastian Vettel later retired with an engine failure, but it didn't spare Ferrari's blushes, having this sort of big, embarrassing feud play out in public. It, of course, has damaged the team relations. You'd have thought Jenson Button has described it as a very strange sort of setup that they'd arranged there. And Lawrence gave his take on it and on whether or not there is the sort of concept of a number one driver at Ferrari at the moment.
So I think at the moment they don't quite know what they want to do. And I think that's what's clear in the decisions that they're making, because it feels like Charles Leclerc has actually been so strong in the last few races. He should really be the lead driver, but Sebastian Vettel, four-time world champion, it's quite hard to knock him back to a number two, and he's obviously not going to want to be a number two driver. So I think they're kind of struggling between two quite strong personalities and two drivers at different ends of their career, and they're not quite sure how to manage it. And unfortunately, the way that they're doing it at the moment, they're making a right old mess of it.
Yeah, he says they're making a right old mess of it, and I'd be inclined to agree. It's always so tense and tricky. You know, growing up, it was the whole Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello dynamic, where Rubens Barrichello was just so happy to be the number two driver. Obviously, there was no debate over who was number one and two at Ferrari, but it's rarely that simple. And the difficulty is when you've got a four-time world champion being outscored and outraced by a 21-year-old, as is happening with Vettel and Leclerc, it's really, really awkward. Racing drivers have massive egos. They have so much pride, understandably, and it is not making for a happy situation at Ferrari. It's getting a little bit embarrassing for Vettel. Of course, he ended a 22-race run without a victory in Singapore last week. This was also what Lawrence had to say about how Ferrari might react to this incident and go forward from here.
I think that when they get back to their factory over the next couple of days and they'll sit down, they're going to have to discuss how they go about racing in the future, because I think it's all well and good sitting down pre-race and coming up with an agreement, but you've got to cover all eventualities, because in Formula 1 racing you can't predict exactly what's going to happen. So you need to make sure that if you say you're going to do this and then something else happens, what are you going to put in place to react to that? And I kind of feel like yesterday Ferrari were just caught a little off guard and they weren't quite sure how best to react to it. And so when Sebastian Vettel was saying that he didn't want to move over and so he effectively ignored team orders and was suggesting that it was because Charles Leclerc wasn't getting close enough to let him by, they kind of need to know what they're going to do in that scenario, because they can't afford to just essentially allow Sebastian to dictate their strategy.
Guy, I'm fairly baffled by this whole scenario. It almost doesn't seem real. And we've had some developments this afternoon.
Yeah, so I've just been reading this, actually, really interesting stuff. Helmut Marko, who was formerly, great name, formerly sort of Red Bull's head of racing, who essentially identified Seb Vettel. Of course, he came through at Toro Rosso and then was promptly promoted to the Red Bull senior team, where he won 4 world championships in a row, who kind of gave him his chance in F1, has apparently told him, he's now at Ferrari, that his Ferrari career is over after yesterday's drama. So this is a really, really significant one. It's going to send shockwaves, I think, through the sport that last a lot longer than just yesterday. But it's incredible, isn't it, how quickly things can change, I guess, in any sport, but maybe motor racing as quickly as any other, and not just because they're going so fast in their cars. But Sebastian Vettel is on 37 million quid a year, reportedly. It's an absolutely massive salary. It far outstrips anyone in the Premier League. just by comparison. That's just his salary, forget endorsements and everything. And here's this young upstart, Charles Leclerc, who, by the way, is absolutely fantastic.
I
don't mean it critically. That's how Vettel will see it.
No, I know that's not what you're saying, but what I mean is, from a Vettel point of view, I appreciate that his ego is getting a bit bruised here. Tough. For 37 million quid a year, anything you tell me to do through a walkie-talkie, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Let alone let the guy behind you overtake you. Literally shout anything in that headset. Drive the car into the wall. All right, 37 million
Drop
quid a
down
year.
Tesco's, will you? Pick me up a couple of bottles of milk.
Yeah. We're out of milk. Well, Johnny, I get where you're coming from, and I think maybe a lot of people listening would relate to that. Maybe that's what separates you and me from having been top sports people. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's that mentality where actually the money is slightly immaterial. You're racing for pride. You're racing, to prove that you're the best, you're the quickest, and it is such a kind of masculine, macho sport where it is all about those, very virile things of who's the fastest round a track in a car and that sort of thing. And Vettel, for the best part of his career, has always been that person. But remember, he didn't have it all his own way at the end of his time at Red Bull with Daniel Ricciardo. He kind of threw his toys out the pram, went to Ferrari, and it doesn't look good on Sebastian Vettel. But it'll be interesting to see whether these Helmut Marko quotes get kind of verified and backed up, because it could have serious consequences for Sebastian Vettel.
This reminds me of the situation we had in the Tour de France a couple of years ago with Chris Froome and Geraint Thomas, and it's one of them where I completely appreciate that if you're a Froome or you're a Vettel, you're very competitive. You've got a very big ego. You want to win. That is part of your identity. It's what your career is based on. But when we're talking about being the best, are you not a less good Formula One driver for not playing as part of the team? Because you are operating in a team. I know it's only one person at the top of that podium, but he is racing for Ferrari. And at that point, you are not doing your job. If the deal is, listen, Leclerc's going to go in front to block Hamilton for a bit, or rather you're going to go in front to block Hamilton, and then you're going to get out of the way and you're going to let Charles go past you. That is the deal. It is a team sport.
It's a really, really fascinating one, Johnny. It's a good comparison as well. I like that one with the Tour de France. Obviously, races done at different speeds, but I think there are a lot of similarities there. Sort of individual sports, but nominally you are part of a team. I guess the team dynamic is much more important in cycling, but you do have those battles of egos. We had it in the Lance Armstrong era, and we had it as recently as last year, or this year even, with Geraint Thomas and Egan Bernal already kind of usurping him just after Thomas did the same to Chris Froome, having won so many Grand Tours before him. So it is fascinating seeing these things play out. You don't need to be a cycling fan or a motor racing fan to be fascinated by watching the human condition at work. And yes, in a way, you're less valuable to your team if you're not willing to play by team orders. But are you a worse Formula One driver? Well, I don't think Ayrton Senna or Sir Jackie Stewart or Michael Schumacher or any of the greats that you want to name from the sport would describe it that way. I think that they would say it's all about wanting to race. Prost and Senna had that famous rivalry at McLaren, for example, back in the 80s. And when Ayrton Senna late in his career was asked, who his best rival was, who the person he'd love racing against most, he didn't say Prost, and he didn't say Nelson Piquet or any of the other drivers he'd race against in Formula One. He said there was a guy I used to race against in karts, a guy called Fullerton. And it was about just that pure desire to win, to go quickest round a track. And that is what these guys all have. That's how they start racing in go-karts. And Sebastian Vettel still has that. There is still a little boy in him, if you like, who just wants to drive really quickly round a track, doesn't want to have to give up places to someone else.
I get that, but the little boy needs to grow up, frankly. And this is made so much worse for him by the fact that Hamilton won. Because the whole point of this strategy with the blocking and the swapping places was to get the win for the team. Now, he didn't even go and win the race. No. If he'd gone and won it,
but
that
an
would have been
engine
a lot
failure you can't really mitigate for, can you? But I do get where you're coming from. The point is, it's an almighty mess, and Ferrari have been, we talk a lot, obviously, about the football in the Premier League.
Talk
Ferrari
about fallen giants.
Have been a team in absolute crisis, correct, Johnny? Maybe we'll get into a bit more detail on them tomorrow. AC Milan and Ferrari, the Italian equivalents of Man United and Arsenal, perhaps. But it's a fascinating one, and it is great. Formula One is still providing us with some excitement because, as you mentioned, Hamilton wins, which in turn just makes it even more likely that he's going to win a phenomenal, by the way, 6th world title. It'll mean that only Michael Schumacher stands ahead of him, and he'll be outright second in the all-time list of titles. And speaking of Man United and Arsenal, Martin showed me just a minute ago, apparently Man United have had more bad team news. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the £50 million right back, of course, ruled out of tonight's game, and he's been a bright spot for United this season, I would say. Trying not to be biased about that. I think he's done well. I don't know if he's been 50 million quid's worth yet, but
he played well at West Ham.
Yeah, and in a bad
well.
performance overall.
Yeah, he played very well. Showed great pace, great energy. I think he was at fault for the goal last week against Rochdale at the far post when the cross went in. He missed the header and he didn't get a recovery for the cross coming back. But if he is out, we haven't had that actually confirmed.
No.
But if he is out, that would be a big blow. But what I have seen going into the stadium is Pogba in with the group. So it looks like he will play.
And Rashford. He's in that group
Rashford's
as well,
also
isn't he?
gone in as well. So if they're fit, Guy, with the predicament the manager's in, I'm almost certain he'd just say both of you are going to play. You know, you've got to
put
play.
yourself in Ollie's shoes, Martin, and your own shoes in the past, I suppose.
Mhm.
Have you been in a position where you almost know a player's not fit, but you know that they might have had the injection, the massage, whatever it is that they might need to just get them through to that level?
Yeah.
And you just cross everything and you think, God, don't let that groin tweak or hamstring pull or whatever it might be.
Loads of times,
Yeah.
Guy. It's like working with Johnny, you know, and he's got toothache. But you
Be
say,
careful
Johnny,
how you
come on.
finish that sentence.
Johnny, come on. You got toothache. You got to get out there because you're such a good linguist. You've got to get out there. We need you, Johnny. And as we've seen today, he's come up with a top-class performance.
Oh, stop it,
Have you ever had a moral dilemma about it? Have you ever thought, I am not maybe risking this player's career, but risking him getting another injury, risking putting him out for a couple of months and sort of, costing potentially the team as well longer term? But does that come into it, or do you literally just think it's about what happens in the next hour and a half?
No, you've got to kind of get them fit. You've got to get them out there. 3 days before we played Southampton away for QPR, I had a knee ligament problem, medial knee ligament. That's the ligament that's just on the inside of your knee, between the two joints. And I had a strain on that, and I remember Jim Smith coming into the medical room, our manager at Queen's Park Rangers at that time, and he said, well, okay, we'll get the physio, get the doctor, and we'll get an injection into that. You'll be fine for Saturday. And it was like, really? So this was on a Tuesday when I wasn't training, obviously. So the doctor came to the training ground on a Tuesday afternoon, and he put in an injection which was, well, horrendous. Cortisone, you may have heard of it, a cortisone injection straight in, through the joint, straight in. It was the most agonising injection. Oh my God, you felt it going right in. Agony. Doctor then said, right, get your cell phone, keep it up for 48 hours, get yourself back in Friday, stay at home, keep it up, elevated on the sofa. Got back in Friday, didn't feel too bad. Jim Smith, the manager, came in and said, great lad, you'll be fit, you're ready for tomorrow, you're playing. Don't need to train today, you're going straight in. So I hadn't trained, played.
Did you want to play?
Oh, God, yeah. Gosh, yes. Never, ever. Oh. Scored and we won.
Right. And how were you on the Monday?
Okay. But
really?
now, Johnny, if I had to go out running, oh my God, both my knees, because I've had cortisones in both knees.
Do you think it's because of that?
I do, yeah. And also playing on AstroTurf at QPR for 5 years in the first team.
And diving in.
And jumping around and running around like a mad dog. That's what probably made my knees now crumble.
Well, don't do cortisone, kids.
No.
This is Love Sport.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio.
Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October. This means that travelling to the EU will change. You'll need to check online if your passport is valid for travel to Europe. If you're planning on driving, you'll need to check if you have the right documents to drive. And make sure your travel insurance covers all your healthcare needs. To keep your trip on track, check what you need to do at gov.uk/Brexit. Get ready for Brexit on the 31st of October.
Mr Davies, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit wedooh.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
This is Love Sport.
You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and special guest Martin Allen until 7. And Guy has all your latest sporting headlines and weather.
FIFA have ordered Cardiff City to pay French club FC Nantes £5.3 million for the transfer of Emiliano Sala. The Argentine striker was killed in a plane crash while travelling from France to Wales to join his new team. The Championship club had argued they were not liable for the full £15 million transfer sum because Salah was not officially their player when he died. West Ham have been dealt a major injury blow after confirming that number one goalkeeper Lucas Fabianski will be out of action for at least 2 months. The Pole tore his hip muscle while playing in their 2-2 draw at Bournemouth on Saturday and came off in the 34th minute. He was replaced by Roberto Jimenez, who will now replace him in the team. He joined the club, of course, on a free transfer in May. And at the Rugby World Cup, Scotland have secured a big win to keep their hopes alive. They bounced back from an opening defeat against Ireland to ease past Samoa 34-0 in their second Pool A match in Japan. Gregor Townsend side were awarded a late penalty try, meaning they secured a crucial bonus point. Their next game is against Russia a week on Wednesday. And in weather, not looking great, I'm afraid, here in London. Lows of 15 degrees overnight, but plenty of rain around overnight. Might be a little bit dry by the morning, but rain coming back around midday tomorrow and settling in for the afternoon, highs of 17 degrees or so. That's the latest here on Love Sport Drive.
Thanks, Guy. Now we're going to go for a new feature now, which is our Premier League Unsung Hero of the Week. This is where we appreciate the underappreciated, perhaps the tireless workhorse, the player who doesn't score the goals, doesn't grab the headlines, but is crucial to a team. Martin, who would you go for?
Mine at the moment that have gone quietly under the radar would be West Ham and their central midfield player and captain, Mark Noble. Quietly and effectively and efficiently, he has been absolutely superb. Getting West Ham up into the Champions League places, well, I don't think anybody expected that.
Do you subscribe to the idea that I know a lot of West Ham fans have, that actually Mark Noble has been robbed by not having an England cap? If you look at some of the central midfield players in the last decade who have represented their country, he should be in that mix.
I'm not sure I'd go along with that one. But what I am sure about is, with all the quality players in the attacking positions, he's slotted in behind them alongside Declan Rice. And he has been the catalyst to supply quick passes and have movement and mobility that last year, probably the year before, I probably thought he's probably past his best. But he's come back to the fore. Oh, he has been absolutely superb. Against Manchester United, he dominated the game. He was superb in there in midfield. So my man so far would be Champions League positioned West Ham United captain, Mark Noble.
Well, I know Guy would want to bring to our attention the qualities of John McGinn, who is the hardest working player in that Villa team. quite possibly the best as well. For me, it would be Harvey Barnes, who finally got a start against Newcastle for Leicester and looked absolutely electric. He is a man with a big future and played a big part in a big result. And talking of big results, a huge win for Scotland at the Rugby World Cup earlier. As Guy mentioned in the headlines, they kept their hopes alive with a 34-0 victory over Samoa. And joining us now to discuss their chances of making the knockout stages and the tournament so far is former Scotland win Kenny Logan. Good evening, Kenny. Thank you for joining us. Well, it's still an uphill battle to make the quarters, but can they do it?
Yeah, it's an uphill battle. It was obviously a massive shock at the weekend seeing Japan beat Ireland. But I've been over in Japan and they are loving the rugby and the passion with the fans. So you're up against the whole country, never mind just the 15 players. But for Scotland's point of view today, it was good for them to get the bonus point. They were good in some parts, but still lacking a lot of physicality and aggression in other parts. But it's a step closer. We've got a hard run in. You know, we're going to have to get another 5 points against Russia, which we'll easily do. And then the big one will be against Japan, which is a massive challenge to get a bonus point against them and stop them getting a bonus point. So this is what World Cups are all about.
Where did Scotland impress you against Samoa, and where have they been a bit lacking in the tournament so far?
Well, I think the impressive thing was that they came out and they got the win, and it's something to build on. But the disappointing thing is they've lacked that real desire. The forwards have not taken huge forward steps. They don't feel very aggressive. They look a bit soft, which is something that I wouldn't have said about Scotland teams the last couple of years because they have been aggressive. I just think that they're lacking that edge. If you watch the other teams, the aggression is high. And even today, sometimes the aggression was up and down. And we need that consistency. It needs to be high for 80 minutes.
Well, if you can scrape through in second, your likely opponents would be the All Blacks. Would you have any chance at all?
Well, I've played in 3 World Cups, and I played the All Blacks twice, and never got past them. And we did score 38 points against them once, and we still didn't win. So no, it's a hard one for us. The way we're playing at the moment, it's quite an easy way for the All Blacks if they come up against us. And I think we've got a huge uphill struggle here. We need bonus points in every game to qualify. So it's all it's up to us to do it, and they can do it. They're a good team. They've shown that over the Six Nations over the last couple of years. They've got the players. And I just think they're just off the boil at the moment. But today we'll give them a lot of confidence. They nailed the team, which is important. Nobody's nailed the team in the competition yet, so Scotland have done that. So they're going to next week with a bit of confidence, have a bit of a rest now. But I think, you can only take one game at a time. There's no point looking at the All Blacks. We've got to think about Russia next and take 60 points, 70 points off them if we can. And then go to play against Japan. And that's the crunch match. And it's a match that Japan have been targeting for the last 4 years. They believe that if they can get 2 or 3 wins out of the group, they believe they can beat Scotland and qualify.
Yeah, and Kenny, what have you made of particularly the other home nations so far? Ireland have been a strange case, obviously, looking really good against you guys, and then succumbing to Japan. It wasn't that Japan were, undeserving winners in that one by any means. So what have you made of them, and also England and Wales from the first couple of games? Who do you think's got the best chance of going furthest in this tournament?
Well, you would have thought Ireland at the start because they were number one in the world. They played against Scotland. They looked really strong and aggressive. Played some good rugby, and I think they went into that Japan game thinking it was just going to, it'll be an easy game. I think that generally mentally they got it wrong, because physically they were there, but mentally I think they got it wrong. Wales will be in the mix. Warren Gatland's one of the best coaches around. He's got a fair chance of being. Well, it looks like now they'll win the group, and we'll play England or France, and they'll know they can beat those 2 teams. England are, I think. They're the dark horse of all the teams that they can produce it. To keep the players like Billy and fit, and Rocky Casina, and also Farrell, to keep the key guys fit, Tuolangi fit. That'll make a big impact for them because of their impact in the game. And as you get through these big games, you'll find that a lot of the players will get tired. And also the big thing that England have got, what nobody else has got, they've got Argentina, they've got France, then there's a semi-final, a quarter-final, then potentially semi-finals. They've got 5 big games to play to win the World Cup, where some of the other teams might only have 3. So it'll be all hands to the pump for England. But they've got the ability, they've got the skills, and I think they can do really well in this tournament. But they need to luck with injuries.
Kenny, can you see beyond the All Blacks as winners? Can England do it?
Of course, England can do it. They've got the players. The All Blacks are a very comfortable team who, if they're struggling, they seem to pull out of the bag. If you watch the South Africa game, South Africa were putting a lot of pressure on them first 30 minutes. They didn't panic. They did look a little bit panicked in the sense that they're throwing the ball around a bit much, but they just soak it up. Once you make a mistake, they pounced, and within 5 minutes they were 12 points up. So that's what the All Blacks can do. Can you see them pass the All Blacks? I wouldn't be surprised if you see South Africa in the final again against New Zealand.
Kenny, great to chat to you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your positivity about the English cause as well. Great to hear. Kenny Logan, their former Scotland winger, giving his take on the brilliance of England. You back us, don't you, Martin?
Yeah, I think he's absolutely right, Kenny. He's top man. He was a good player as well, wasn't he? God, blimey. And it's nice, to hear him back in England, which is fantastic.
Well, he's not going to have Scotland to support for too much longer, is he? So it's nice to have a second team. Johnny thinks he's got one.
He spoke very highly
I'm
of England.
I'm joking.
He spoke very highly of England, didn't he? Which is good to hear. But
and that Japan group, I think I'm right in saying, easy to say now because no one's got the record of it. I think I said that Pool A has got the makings of a real classic. And I have to say, I didn't see Japan beating Ireland, but I didn't see Ireland beating Scotland as comfortably as they did. But the way that those first 2 rounds of games has gone means that almost literally any result is possible. Russia, you're going to count out. But of the other 4 teams, seriously, any 2 of those could go through. And that's exciting for Scotland, I think, in a way, because, everything's a little bit up for grabs. People are going to be more nervy in all the other games than they might otherwise have been. And they've got a chance to bounce back from that crushing opening defeat to Ireland. And they were good today, Scotland, in difficult conditions with the roof closed. It was humid. The ball was very slippery. Stuart Hogg, by the way, landed an absolute monster of a drop goal. What a player he is.
Unbelievable.
It was like 45 metres out, absolutely from nowhere. Everyone was just sort of going through the phases as normal. Stuart Hogg gets the ball and thinks, I can't bother with this. Let's kick a goal.
Passing? What's that?
Talk about cool guys don't look at explosions. He drops it. He's turned around. He's not even looking. Everyone else is going like jaw on the floor, like surely not. And it made it. Unbelievable. With a player like him in the side, a lot's possible, but they do need the forwards to turn up as well. But as Kenny said, they looked a little bit better today.
What are you talking about? Explosions? Everyone's looking for...
That's a saying, Martin, that cool guys don't look at explosions. You walk away and you just let things explode behind you.
What is he talking about?
No, it's a thing. It's like, watch any action film once you've known this, and like once James Bond has planted the bomb in the nuclear facility, he's not there when he's walked out of it, turning around going, cool, that's a cool explosion.
Everyone see that?
He walks away calmly. He doesn't need to look at it. He knows it's cool.
So how does that apply to rugby?
Oh, for goodness sake.
Because he knows he's cool. He knows the explosion is cool. He's done the kick. He doesn't need to watch it. He's in no doubt. The facility will explode.
Going over.
Yeah.
The ball is going over.
So he knew it was going over, so he walked away.
That's exactly right.
Away from the explosion,
Pennies
like James
dropped.
Bond.
We got there really quickly.
Yeah, so quickly. I just wanted to, lastly, we're going to speak to Matt Beadle in just a moment about the fan shows tonight. It is International Podcast Day today, though. Remember, you can listen to all of our fan shows, all of our shows, actually, on the Listen Again feature of our website. If you've missed any bit of the show today that you really want to catch up on, and I'd say it's worth catching up on all of or any of the fan shows over the last couple of weeks, they're all available there on our website here on International Podcast Day. Matt Beadle coming up very soon to tell us what's up after 7 on Love Sport.
I've heard that England does not have a kidney bank, but it does have a Liverpool. Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio. Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do. The smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Please state your reason for this call.
I would like to end my home insurance policy.
Please state your reason for this call.
End my policy.
Please enter your 12-digit passcode. Policy ended.
Finally.
To confirm end of policy, please enter credit card details and pay £50.
With Aviva Plus home insurance, you can pay monthly at no extra cost and with no cancellation charges. New Aviva Plus. Insurance the way it should be.
Excludes Northern Ireland.
Love Sport. Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. Martin Allen still coming to terms with the expression cool guys don't look at explosions, and luckily there's nothing exploding in the Love Sport studio, but we have been joined by a cool guy.
Yes,
Matt Beadle.
I was hoping that's what you were going to go to, Johnny.
Matt Beadle is carrying us forward from 7, and listen, it's a big show, 7 till 8. The Arsenal fan show with the guys from Gunners Town going away to Old Trafford this very evening. Are the guys going to be feeling positive?
Yes and no, I think. I think you've alluded to the record that they have at Old Trafford since 2006, obviously haven't won there. Interestingly, it's the 44th consecutive season that they're playing each other, though. If you remember when United got relegated to Division 2 in 74, so since the 1975-6 season, these two teams have been in the top flight. Plenty of goals, plenty of drama. We're going to be dissecting all of those, looking at some of the classic games over the years, reflecting on that last victory. Adebayor, of course, scoring in the last 5 minutes at Old Trafford, but not a win since. I think they're quietly confident because records are there to be broken. I think law of averages suggests it's going to happen at some point. And tonight, if we're to believe this crisis that Man United are apparently in, then they might get the victory.
Well, they're right on the edge of the relegation zone, aren't they? So they're not that far off a crisis.
I tell you what, when I come in here and I hear your show before I come on for the fan shows, last week I think it was Neil Custis you had talking absolute nonsense about Manchester United, suggesting that they're never two games away from a crisis, even in Sir Alex Ferguson's era. Nonsense. Complete and utter rubbish is what I'm saying to that. Because they're not. It's just untrue. To say that United are never
two or three more games and they flit into the edge of the relegation zone. Is that not a crisis?
What if they win tonight?
Yeah, but we're just saying, what if they don't win tonight? We're looking at that side of it. If they win tonight, it's great. But they haven't been winning. So if they don't win the games and they get down to the edge where that line is, but we all look above or below the line, and United start, that is a crisis, isn't it, surely?
I don't know. Not in my opinion. No, I think that Man United are currently in a rebuilding process. Listen, I guess I'm more of a reasoned Man United onlooker. Some people, the modern fan, I suppose, will kick up a fuss because Man United aren't where they are supposed to be at the moment. But Man City and Liverpool are streets ahead. There is no way in a million years United can compete on that level right now. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is doing a rebuilding job. You need to give him time.
Is he going to get that?
Sorry? I would like to think so. I would like to think history suggests prior to Sir Alex Ferguson's era.
Right, okay, so some point in the early 1920s.
Well, I would draw comparisons on it, to be fair. Sir Alex came in, November 1986. He rebuilt that team. He got rid of the old heads, Kevin Moran. He got rid of Graham Hogg, John Silverbeck, Jesper Olsen, all those players at the time who were coming to the end of their career at United and weren't quite ready to stand up to it. He then went on a rebuilding process. If we're to believe it, apparently the job was
sacked.
in 1989 when they played Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup, or 1990.
Mark
Robbins, absolutely. But it's quite clear, and Alex Ferguson has spoken about this actually in a book that he wrote many years ago in his first 6 years at United, where he said it was never the case. The press built up the fact that if we didn't win, I would be sacked. But Martin Edwards, the chairman at the time, pulled him aside and gave him what you would say is the vote of confidence, but behind closed doors. So he gave him his backing, but in his office. This is different with Ed Woodward, right? So he's come out and said, I'm giving Ollie my backing. You don't need to do that, Ed. You're just doing it for yourself.
Saying.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And there are going to be people in the press looking at it saying the only time you ever hear that is when they're about to be sacked. Kiss of death, Martin.
Yeah, I've had that 7 times.
At least you're doing a lot of kissing. That's something.
I can see what you're saying, but if the results continue and without a centre forward, and there is a project, there is a change of culture, there is a demand for new and a new way forward, a new pathway for Manchester United, and there is a need to be patient. But if they do slip down, I don't ever want to see a manager sacked. It's the worst feeling in the world. Worst feeling when that hits you, and it will hit him hard because you can see it in his face right now. He's in pain. So I do want him to do well, and I want him to be successful. But is he the right person to dig him out of what is going to be a pretty tricky, pressurised situation, highly pressured at Manchester United? They won't be able to get many players in January unless they pay completely over the top. But they haven't even got a centre forward, have they?
Well, we're hearing rumours that both Paul Pogba and Marcus Rashford are going to start tonight. Apparently, Axel Tuanzebe will start, but Aaron Wan-Bissaka is out with an injury. Listen, that Arsenal show is going to be a cracker.
Yeah.
And at 8, the Brentford fan show, of course, one close to Martin Allen's heart. A hat-trick of headed goals for Ollie Watkins, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. What a performance.
Yeah, a great performance. And actually the performance that now, because the Brentford fans last week were a little bit beside themselves, to be honest. It was quite difficult to lift their spirits, but this is kind of what football fans are all about, right? You go through these peaks and troughs, these ups and downs, and actually now I know they're going to come in and go, crikey, do you know what? I'd say we're back on it now. And I think that performance, particularly for Said Benrahma, I know that Ollie Watkins got the hat-trick, but Benrahma looked to be back to his best.
He's a good player, isn't he?
A very good player, yeah. And the nutmeg was great, which Sam Saunders, I don't know whether you heard it, described as suggesting that Benrahma could nutmeg a mermaid. Is that a common phrase that's been used in football before?
That is a thing.
I hadn't actually heard that
That's
before.
because there's no gap between the legs.
Well, yeah, I know why, Johnny. I get it.
Dopey.
I don't know.
Where
I
have
had
you
to
heard
explain
it before?
It gets said a lot.
No, it does.
Never heard it.
Who's ever heard it? Have you ever heard it?
Never heard it.
I've never heard of it.
I've
Guy,
heard it.
have you ever heard of nutmeg? No,
He's nodding.
The posh boys have heard of it, of course.
Yeah, the youngsters have heard of it. That's what's going on. Listen, things looking a bit
youngsters,
up.
you cheeky monkey.
Excuse me. From 9, it's the Man City fan show. Another consistent performance, but something we need to touch on quickly is that kit, which for me is an abomination. It's yellow, half orange, fading up or down, depending on your worldview. It looks either like you've tripped and fallen into a can of Fanta, or that your printer has run out of ink halfway through. I despise it. What's your take?
It's horrendous. It's absolutely
vile.
horrendous.
Guy Watts likes it.
But the problem, it looks a bit like an ice cream, doesn't it? The problem is that kits for me, we won't go into this right now, but kits are a debacle anyway now. The fact that we used to have iconic kits that used to last 2 or 3 seasons, now one every season, there's a big brouhaha when it's released. Oh, do you know what? It harks back to the days of 1908, their first ever kit. That's great. It loosely connects to that kit. And then 6 months later, the kids want a new one because it's Christmas.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
On that Man City one, the fact they're 5 points now behind Liverpool, if they lose at the weekend, is Guardiola's job at risk?
It's a crisis.
Well,
it's a crisis at Man
That's
City.
your favourite line.
Fair
That's
play.
all I ever hear from you. If they lose tonight, is the manager going to get the sack?
Listen,
Do you think the manager's going to get the sack? No, you just said that. Do you think the manager's going to get the sack?
No, Martin. It's been 4 hours.
Long day, right?
Tempest frame. No, it's been a cracking show. I think we'll call that 1-1, Martin. And then just quickly, from 10 till 10:30, the Villa fan show, and then 10:30 till 11. Well, lots to talk about on the Derby fan show, including a win.
Johnny, if Villa don't win, do you think Dean Smith?
He should get the job straight away. Matt, great to chat to you. As always, it sounds like you've got a great few shows coming up. I will be listening on my way home, as I always do. Martin Allen, are you quite finished?
I am with you, Johnny. Every time, every game. Is the manager going to get the sack, Johnny? God, blimey.
Well, I think we should end on that note. If United lose tonight, is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer close to the sack? If Arsenal lose tonight, is Unai Emery close to the sack? You brought this on yourself.
No. Let them get on and manage. Let Fred Woodward, let him get the sack.
Well, fighting talk from a football man against non-football people. Stay with us here on Love Sport. You've got the Arsenal fan show coming up from 7. Updates throughout that game. And, of course, join us from 3 o'clock tomorrow for the Posh Boys on Drive.
This is Love Sport.
Hi, my name's Kurt Edwards. I work in advertising and live in Surrey. Last year, the family content insurance was £745. A friend of mine had recommended a spokesmansaid.com. When it came for this year's renewal, I managed to get it for £403. So for those 10 minutes on that website, I saved over £340. I told my family, my friends, you'd be absolutely mad not to give it a go.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Mr. Davis, to start your car insurance policy, you'll have to pay upfront £850 for the year in one single payment. How does that sound?
£850?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
In one go?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
Today?
Yes, Davis.
In single payment?
Yes, Mr. Davis.
What?
With new Aviva Plus, we won't ask you to pay everything up front. Everyone pays monthly at no extra cost. New Aviva Plus, car insurance the way it should be. Excludes Northern Ireland.
If you're in business, I bet you hate wasting money. We Do Taxi Tops can help you achieve minimum wastage on your advertising costs and maximum exposure. Our revolutionary taxi tops can target your potential customers in the right place at the right time, so your message has the greatest potential for making an impact. We Do Taxi Tops. Visit WEDOOH.com. We Do, the smarter, quicker way of advertising in London, supporting London businesses of all sizes.
Hello, Matt Beadle here. You are listening to Love Sport, and we have got the Arsenal fan show coming up shortly before Arsenal, of course, travel to Old Trafford looking for their first victory at the Theatre of Dreams since 2006. Emmanuel Adebayor scoring on that day. Incredibly, this will be the 44th consecutive meeting between the two teams. Of course, Man United relegated to Division 2. Who could believe that way back when in the mid-70s? But the two have battled it out in the top flight ever since they returned there. The Arsenal fan show, I should say, coming up. But first, it is a news update.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 7. The Chancellor has announced plans to increase the national living wage to £10.50 per hour by 2024. Sajid Javid says it'll mean a pay rise for around 4 million people. During his speech at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester, he also revealed a change in the age people get it.
We will reward the hard work of millennials too, by bringing down the age threshold for the national living wage